Woo, yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Game Time Ty. How's it going? Hey, Nico Dobbs, we got Zuthes in the house. Happy Friday, y'all. It's hot out here in Southern California, and it's humid as hell too, actually. And we have a special treat today, as you can see on the bottom of the screen. We have my cousin and Dallas Cowboys fan Rasha in the house. What's up, Rasha? How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yo, what's going on, Ty? What's going on, Game Time Nation? What's going on, guys? I'm excited about this stream, man. How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, that's right. We're doing the NFC East today. What's good? So we are going to start off with the Cowboys. That is who we'll start off with. It seems appropriate. Yo, Nico, dude, having a good day on a Friday. Rasha, how you feeling this Friday, man? It feels like a hype Friday for some reason. I don't know. Something about it. Like, we're getting closer to football. You know what I mean? It's just like training camp's right around the corner.
Man.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. We already got some training camp going on. Yeah. I mean, draft season is like a month away. It's something in the air for sure. We're getting closer and closer, man. I'm psyched.
Hell yeah, bro. Let's go. Well, might as well start off with the Cowboys, man. We said we were going to do it. So, what was the big sort of news in the offseason with the Cowboys? I know they signed George Pickens to like a 1-year deal. What was it, a franchise tag? What were the numbers on that? Let's take a look at what his contract. 1 year, $27 million fully guaranteed franchise tag. That's not a bad deal. What do you think about that deal, Rasha?
Well, I wish we could have went on and locked up George Pickens for the long term. I mean, that's a lot of money regardless. But at the same time, I know these players, they want that long-term security, because anything can happen, injuries or whatnot. But I mean, it's been well documented, maybe his maturity history, his time with the Steelers and things. And it did look like he turned over a new leaf. So, I mean, in order for them to make that Super Bowl run, it may have been necessary to give him a franchise tag in order to bring in some more defensive players.
I think, yeah, what you're saying is completely right. I think it's twofold with respect to just having sort of long-term flexibility, maybe to bring in some, like you said, key defensive players. I'm sure they're going to plan on, I doubt they're done making moves. There might even be like a mid-year trade or something that they make for a big defensive guy, or even before the year, similar to how the Rams traded for Myles Garrett. But and then the second thing, like you mentioned, it is unfortunate to keep bringing this up, but the behavioral, sort of aspect of players who might be a little bit diva-ish or just aren't good with maybe authority. Yo, what's up, Walt? How you doing, bro? And George Pickens, unfortunately, as talented as he is, does carry sort of this maybe like lack of maturity. You know what I'm saying? Man, it's a beautiful Friday. It's hot as hell, and it's humid, but I feel like we're actually in Texas right now with how humid it is, right? Like, it does feel like we're out in East Texas. But we're about to talk about the Cowboys too, speaking of East Texas vibes. But yeah, you're right. Pickens does feel like he's grown up a bit. And it's funny to say that, and Rasha, I hope you don't, get upset when I bring this up, or maybe you'll chuckle about it because I thought it was funny too. But him and CD have like really bonded, but not maybe in the way that like it is good for the coaching staff. Like, they're out, getting drinks at like 3 a.m. or whatever before game day. I forget where that was. Where was that? I'm trying to remember. Was that in New Orleans? Or Vegas? Was it in Vegas? I think it was in Vegas.
I want to say it was in Vegas. Yeah, those guys, man, they've been having a good time.
The Hard Rock Hotel or whatever.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, they've been bonding. And maybe this is really the perfect destination for George Pickens. For me, he's arguably the best number 2 receiver in the league. So I don't know what you think about that. Seeing that you're a Bengals fan, maybe you would think T. Higgins is the best. But,
well, I think the fact that you even mention that T. Higgins is in that conversation shows me that T. Higgins is definitely it's opinion. It's about a matter of opinion, probably, because both of those guys, I would say, it's hard to choose. between who you would consider the best number 2 wide receiver in the league, because you're absolutely right. George Pickens, in a lot of people's eyes, is the best number 2 receiver in the league. And I would say maybe it's because I'm a Bengals fan, or maybe it's because I am a T. Higgins fan, or all the above. And I have been watching T. Higgins play, and I maybe have an affinity for him more than George Pickens. I would say he's the best number 2 in the league. But hey, to each their own. I don't want to clash too much on that, because I do have to concede, like, it's not a clear call. Like, I think you could make arguments for both, and I guess I'll leave it at that. But Nico Dobbs is saying it's constantly raining in ATL. Oh shit, damn! I guess it's been it has been raining in the South. I feel like even down in like Georgia and Texas, and obviously you got hurricane season coming up too, which is not going to be good for y'all, but good luck with that. You really think Dallas should have traded Pickens though? Interesting. Like right after they signed him to that deal, or like just, because he probably would have. I don't know how they get that trade off without signing him to a deal, but maybe I'm just like not familiar with how those deals kind of pan out. He is better than T, but you think Pickens is a true 1? Interesting. You don't think T. Higgins can be a true 1? Bro, let's not start this. Because I could go off on a tangent. But yeah, no, that's a lot of money for a number 2. Not a lot of number 2s are paid this much, even in just like a 1-year fashion. So, and it's fully guaranteed. He definitely earned it. We'll see what happens this year. And if he's betting on himself, then he has to have another good year. So just to put this in fantasy perspective, he's going around pick 10, which is wild. That can't be right. Wide receiver 10. Okay, sorry. Pick 16. So wide receiver 10. ADP, wide receiver 10. He finished as the wide receiver 4 last year, which a lot of that came in the beginning of the year when CD got hurt, and definitely a little bit when CD got back. But after CD got back, and maybe there were some tough matchups down the stretch, Pickens wasn't having really as consistent games as he was in the beginning of the year. So, you see up here when CD goes down, 33 points against Green Bay, and then he follows it up 2 weeks later with 31 points against Carolina, and is having like 5 straight games with touchdowns, and one of those he got 2, right? And then when CD got back, you see a different story. I think CD maybe came back at around week 11 or week 12 after the bye. So yeah, that kind of maybe impacted his value a little bit. But no, man, like he's going as the wide receiver 10. He could easily outperform that ADP, which is crazy to think. But there were moments. I'm bringing T. Higgins back into this conversation, who's going down here about a round and a half later. He also he finished last year as wide receiver 15. So not quite top 10, but I think he does have top 10 potential. He just has to play all 17 games, and he consistently does not. So to Walt Grizzly's point, Pickens has been healthier, right? So I don't know. I understand why there's a disparity here between their draft capital. It just makes sense. But if anything were to happen to Jamar Chase, knocking on all the wood I can fucking find right now, T. Higgins is propelled into like a top 5 potential wide receiver, right, in terms of value, for the duration of time that Jamar, if he's out, is missing. So that's my perspective on that. What do you think about George Pickens' outlook this year? Rasha, do you feel like it's fair to pick him up as the wide receiver 10? You're picking him up over other guys who are true wide receiver 1s on their team, like Chris Olave, Rashee Rice, Devontae Smith, Gary Dubs, Teddy Mack. Do you think George Pickens, who's a wide receiver 2, even though it is on Dallas, it is right next to CeeDee Lamb, he's going super high in drafts? Would you pick him up here? I think it might be a little
Absolutely
too rich for me.
But yeah, that is it's very expensive for me. You make very good points. He's being drafted ahead of these true number 1 receivers on their teams, and he's just way too expensive for me. He'll have weeks where he pops off, but there will be weeks when they won't have to throw it as much because their defense is improved. They brought in a new defensive coordinator. They drafted Caleb Downs in the draft, top NFL draft pick. And they brought in, other guys, Quinn Williams in the midseason last year, Rashawn Gary in the offseason. The defense will be much better. And then they'll be able to lean on the run a little bit more. There will be shootouts because, the schedule is, a little difficult. But there will be games when he will score single digits simply because there won't be as much volume.
Yeah, good point. And he's got to be efficient then with that sort of lack of volume. And when we saw them together, and them being CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens playing together, his volume wasn't quite there, right? Like, I mean, yeah, when CD came back, he came on a little slow, so you do have these games where George Pickens was still pretty solid and was obviously the better of the two, but then, a couple weeks later, week 14, week 15, 9 targets, 5 catches for only 37 yards. Okay, that's at Detroit. Theoretically, it should have been a shootout. I don't remember the game script in that. I mean, he got 9 targets, just couldn't produce as much as maybe he would have liked. And then the following week, Minnesota, tough defense, only 6 targets, caught only 3 of them for 33 yards. So, and no touchdowns in either. And I'm not sure how CD performed in those weeks. Oh, my cat's being naughty. We'll take a look in a sec. But he just has to be efficient, and so when he's catching passes, he's good. When he's not, when they're not connecting, he's bad. I mean, that's the case with anyone, but specifically when you're drafting a guy this high, you're basically drafting him as a wide receiver 1. So in some instances, this is the first receiver that some people are picking up, right? Do you want George Pickens as your wide receiver 1? Like, that's your guy? I don't know. That's tough for me, But he could be good. He could finish as a top 10 wide receiver again this year, even with CD maybe playing a full year or whatever. But then CD is then being overdrafted. So one of these guys, they can't both finish. I mean, they can. But how likely is it that they both finish as top 10 guys? Because the reason CD didn't finish as a top 10 guy is because he got hurt. He finished as top 17. And man, maybe I'm like hallucinating. I thought he missed way more time than just 3 weeks. So that's kind of crazy, but still was getting much more significant volume than Pickens was. Pickens was just a little more efficient and was getting more touchdowns, especially during that stretch again where CD was out. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible. We've seen it happen, right? So I'm not going to say it's out of the realm of possibility, but I would probably wait on Pickens. Maybe if he slips around, then I could make an argument of, yeah, he's a lock to pick up, right? You can't let him drop any further than that, I don't think, right? So, yes, Walt, to your point, or to answer your question, yeah, it was 1 year franchise tag deal, almost $28 million guaranteed, basically 27.2. So yeah, pretty good, pretty solid, for a 1 year deal for a guy who, 2 years ago, we didn't know if he was even going to be a viable player in the NFL anymore because of how he left Pittsburgh. But I think Dallas looks to trade him. Is going to be expensive to keep him in. CD apparently this year, the draft is going to be loaded. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be expensive to keep him and CD. True. They can't do what the Bengals did. I don't know if they could figure that one out. George Pickens is probably going to demand more money than T did. As far as fantasy, I'm not taking him ahead of any true wide receiver 1s with a few exceptions. True. Yeah, that's how I feel. Dak has shown CD is his guy, so if he's on the field, he will get the volume over Pickens. And that is correct, because that's what, we saw right there. Volume right here. Getting maybe 3 to 4 more targets on average than George Pickens in these games, right? Maybe 2 to 3, but still, definitely, clearly the higher target share. So, but CD's going in pick 7, right? Wide receiver 5, right before Christian McCaffrey, ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of Jonathan Taylor, ahead of Drake London, just behind Amon-Ra and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Rasha, is there any reason to believe that people are underestimating CD right now just because of how it panned out last year, and that maybe he should be going even near the likes of Jamar Chase and Puka, right up here, as the 1, 2, 3 kind of spot? Because last year I was super high on CD. I think I would have been not shocked at all if he finished as a top 3 wide receiver, but just, it didn't pan out because he got hurt, and then maybe there were some slow weeks toward the end there. But you miss 4 weeks essentially, because that's essentially what happened, and still finish as a top 17 wide receiver. That's not too bad, So
Yeah, I mean, I believe he's appropriately priced. He's my wide receiver 5 after those guys you mentioned.
okay,
The Jamar Chase, Puka, JSN, St. Brown. But he does have the overall wide receiver 1 upside. He can easily finish as the wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
It just all comes down to injury. That would be what would give me a little pause into drafting him. But I mean, he's very appropriately priced. He missed he missed like what, 5 games in the last 2 years. So I mean, but you can't predict injuries. Last year he only finished as the wide receiver 20, and it was because he missed those games, and he only scored 3 touchdowns last season. So that would definitely pick up. He's going to get at least 7 or 8 touchdowns, I would say.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, he does have that overall number 1 upside, and I wouldn't skip him if those other guys are gone.
Okay, so I guess that's actually a fair assessment. We're like, he's still 3 years removed from his number 1 overall receiver performance in 2023, which was just astronomical. And I think he could get there, but that was when he had 181 targets and he played all 17 games. So to your point, he has missed 5 games in the last 2 years. So that's 2 in 2024 and then 3 last year. So despite that, he got 117 targets last year, so not terrible, and just cracked 1,000 yards. But those touchdowns, like you mentioned, he only got 3, man. So is he due for a positive regression? Can he finish all 17 games? I'd like to think that he could do both of those things. I'm, more than likely that's what happens. I'm just maybe, again, like an optimist, especially in this perspective. Like I just like the situation with CD. We've seen him do it before. He is pretty low on draft boards, but his potential, like a Justin Jefferson kind of guy who he felt disrespected that he wasn't considered the number 1 wide receiver anymore. Like he was like, nah, man, that's fucked up. So we might see him try to really turn on the Jets this year, and do some big things. Sure. But to finish my point about CD, I don't know, man. I know I'm an Amon-Ra guy. I just don't believe in Jackson Smith-Njigba. I know, what did Walt Grizzly say? Yeah, that list is a bit of an insult to Jackson Smith-Njigba, to be honest. I get it. Sam will probably force feed targets to him as well this year again. Will defense be able to stop it? I don't know. We'll see. But real quick, Nico Dobbs is saying, hey, Ty, how would you go after Steelers offense in terms of running backs and wide receivers? I'm so confused if I should even draft them because it's too crowded. Man, we'll do the AFC North probably next Friday or next Tuesday maybe. Yeah, we might do that next Tuesday because I literally have not touched a single shred of research around the Steelers because, to your point, it's very nebulous over there right now. So I think Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, right? And so, they have that going for them or going against them. And then maybe Jaylen Warren is still the dude. Is he still on there? Like he might literally not even be on that team anymore. No, he is. So Jaylen Warren is probably the highest picked player on this team, but even that is a little bit of a reach for me. And I just, you're asking a Bengals fan what they think about the Steelers off of zero research. It's going to be harsh, brother. I'm going to tell you to avoid every single one of them dudes. But when we do the AFC North depth chart breakdown next week and we look through these guys, I could change my tune on a couple of them. But for now, I'm going to just tell you this. And I hope you're not drafting at all right now between now and then, because I'm just going to tell you just to avoid them. And to your point, like, it's a wasteland over there. It's a fucking mire. It's a cesspool of mystery, right? You don't know who's going to do what. So that's what I'll say there. But yeah, I guess my point about CD is, I guess you're right, man. Like, I don't know if I would reach for anybody or reach for him over any of these guys. I think I would still pick up Jamar, Puka probably, unless Puka's bite turns into a situation, right? Where, did you hear about that? You heard about that. I think you told me about that. Somebody told me about that recently. But did you see pictures of the shit?
No, I didn't see the pictures, man. They had
Bro.
pictures of it.
Bro,
Come
pictures
on,
came out.
man.
I don't know if it just came out recently, but I just saw him yesterday. And it literally looks like a fucking shark bite. I was surprised there was even flesh still left in the
Oh
damn.
no.
It was crazy, bro. Yeah, quite the bite, dude. It was like, I'm not trying to
Man,
laugh at it because it's not funny
some
that girl
vampire
got
stuff
hurt.
going on there. What's going on here?
Yeah, I know. But so I don't know if that's going to affect Puka in any way with sort of punishment or whatever, discipline. But yeah, but Walt's saying you like Dak, but he can be streaky at times. True. You would take JSN over almost everyone except for Chase, and you'd think about that even? Bro, that's crazy. Avoid the Steelers at all costs. Their head coach is Mike McCarthy. True. And yes, he is a moron. And I hate to say that because my brother is a big Packers fan, and they did win a Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy, but like, I just want to give that credit to Aaron Rodgers. And maybe Mike McCarthy was a good coach at one point. I think his style is just completely out. It's old fashioned. It's outdated. He didn't evolve. He didn't adapt. And I don't know how he's still head coach. And speaking of Mike McCarthy, Rasha, tell me, yo, what up, Matty Boots? Hey, we got Matty Boots in the chat. Tell me, Rasha, how did you feel for the years that Mike McCarthy was your guys' head coach? Was that a fun time?
Oh no, it was not. I was excited for us to move on, because I mean, the ultimate goal for the Cowboys is to win a Super Bowl. We're very hungry for a Super Bowl, and we knew that he was not going to be the guy that took us to the top. I mean, he was just another, puppet, in Jerry Jones's system.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we got Coach Shoddy, he's actually, taking more of the reins of the team. He has more control, of the operations and things like that.
Right.
So, it's just a great culture. It's good vibes. And, Dak Prescott, he's already come out and guaranteed a playoff spot. So, hopefully we can make that playoff run and go to the Super Bowl. I'm really excited. And, as far as McCarthy goes, I don't think Steelers fans should be that excited about that. They really made a big mistake, letting Coach Tomlin go.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been great. I think it would have been a great fit if Tomlin came to Dallas. I don't know how that would have happened. I think maybe the timing didn't necessarily shake out quite, the right way. I think McCarthy had already left before Tomlin did, but like, regardless, that could have been a cool scenario to see pan out, and I would have been stoked for you guys because I think Tomlin's a great coach. As much as I hate the fucking Steelers, and I know I'm wearing a jersey that kind of looks like the Steelers right now, but I promise you it's not a Steelers jersey. Tomlin is a coach, like one of the greats in the NFL, and he's done things that you just are shocked by in terms of keeping his team afloat with a positive record without a fucking starting quarterback, with like a third string quarterback, with like literal fourth string dudes on the offensive line, like crazy shit, similar to maybe like a Kyle Shanahan has done with the 49ers lately. But yeah, man, no, I like your optimism there. I love how Dak Prescott just comes out and guarantees a fucking playoff spot. That must be cool, to have a quarterback who's like, yeah, we doing it. And even in a stacked division, we haven't even looked at the rest of the teams in this division. Cowboys look pretty loaded, obviously, with this offense, and I know their defense got a little bit better, but it's still probably not going to be great. But the rest of this division, you still got the Eagles to deal with. You got the Giants. Maybe the Giants are probably like the little bro still, but they're making moves. Like, you can't just count them out completely. And then the Commanders, we saw what they did 2 years ago. They literally upset the Lions to make it to the NFC Championship game and somehow lost to the Eagles still. But like, again, they showed people that they're a serious team to be reckoned with. So like, this division is no joke. And as we look through it, we'll see kind of what to look out for. But we still got to look through some of these boys still. We talked about Dak Prescott a little bit in terms of his playoff guarantee. Let's take a look at his stats and where he's going in drafts. Give me your quick take on Dak Prescott right now. Are you high on him this year? He's going as the QB 10, and he finishes the QB 5 last year. So even though there were some down games, he had some pretty nice moments and did actually kind of do well in the fantasy playoffs despite a couple tough matchups. So How
I
are you
mean, as
feeling
we've
about Dak?
already alluded to, man, they have weapons everywhere, with the CD, the Pickens, you can't even sleep on the tight end Ferguson. You got Javante
Mm-hmm.
Williams. It's just weapons everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be a high volume passing game once again.
Mm.
Just because of the difficult schedule, there will be games where they'll have to air it out.
Mm.
And a lot of those games are on prime time. So, whenever the Cowboys are on prime time, you can just about count on it being a shootout. I mean, look at his ADP. There's guys in front of him that I would not take before Dak. Yeah, I mean Jackson Dart. I mean, everybody has their own opinions, but
Right.
for me, I would take Dak over Dart. I would take him over Trevor Lawrence,
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams. I mean, and there's
Right.
even injury risk with Burrow. That's your guy. I know it, but he didn't
You're
really
right.
play much last year. Yet he's being drafted as like the quarterback 5 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Dak, I think he's a smash pick, and if a lot of people are low on him, just for the fact that he's on the Cowboys, a lot of people may pass on Dak, and you can get him at an even bigger discount.
Dude, you're so right. I mean, all those guys that you mentioned, I probably would do the same. I probably would pick up Dak over them. But it's not even like you need to reach for him because people, for whatever reason, just kind of like let Dak chill. He could easily finish like he finished last year as the QB5 quietly, right? As the QB5, and this year he's going as a QB10. So I like that perspective on him. And let's see what Walt says. Herbert's looking healthy. Oh, shit. Oh, nice. You guys are talking about the Chargers? Hell yeah, bro. Hey, Matty Boots in the chat.
Oh,
Hey, Commanders are overrated. That's funny. Yo, what up? Check the status. How you doing, bro? Happy Friday. Okay. And Walt is saying he agrees with you about Dak. Damn. All right, dude. Okay, I like that. I like that. Because it
I'm
is
a 49ers fan. Wow, unbiased opinions. I like it.
yeah, and that's the beauty, of what we do here. We get 49ers and Cowboys fans agreeing on a player. That's cool. That's cool. But no, so I do agree with you though. There are some guys up here, like you said, Caleb Williams. I don't know if I would go so far as to say Joe Burrow. But I definitely would consider Dak over a lot of these guys. Trevor Lawrence for sure. And even again, you could probably, if you're leaving a draft and you waited on quarterback and Dak Prescott is your starter and you got him in like the 8th round, bro, I bet you're feeling great about that. Like your team probably looks incredible if that's how you structured your team. So you didn't have to go up and get like a Josh Allen or something like that. Like you probably have guys like, let's see, where's Josh Allen going? Josh Allen's going here. You probably have a Saquon Barkley instead. You probably have a Devontae Smith, or maybe not him, but Omarion Hampton, right? You probably have somebody like that instead of Josh Allen. And all you needed to do was wait until the 8th round to pick up Dak Prescott to get that. Bro, I'm doing that every single fucking time. So, yeah. But just to indulge a little bit on the schedule aspect, to your point, they start off at New York. That's a primetime game, right? That's their season opener. It's a road game, primetime game, and it could easily be a shootout. So big game on the horizon there. Then week 5, your primetime on a Thursday night game versus Tampa Bay at home. So that's a nice Dallas game. Then the very next week, it's Sunday Night Football at Green Bay. Right? And then the very next week, it's a Monday Night Football game at Philadelphia. So that's like 3 back-to-back primetime games. 2 of them are away games. One of them's against a division rival, right? That's a crazy stretch, actually. And then they don't have any other primetime games until the first week of December, which is week 13, where they're at Seattle. So all these primetime games are actually like road games too, which is crazy. And then they wrap up their primetime action, or maybe even week 18 could be primetime, but week 16 is a Sunday Night Football game at home against Jacksonville. So all these games, to your point, man, could easily shoot out. Maybe the Green Bay game is the tough one. That's like a low-scoring affair. Maybe Micah Parsons is back by then. He, has a big game, really wants to show out against his former team. And then even the Philly game could possibly be like a scrappy, division road match. So that definitely feels like a tough stretch for them. But like either way, man, their offense is good enough that if everybody is like firing on all cylinders and there's no like reason to believe they shouldn't be, that they could definitely put up numbers against even a Philly defense, even a Green Bay defense. It won't be too cold yet because it'll still be October, right? So that actually could be like a sick matchup. But Dallas defense is going to be rough. Teams will exploit their LBs. I could definitely see with all the improvements that Dallas made on the defensive side of the ball, y'all still struggle. And same with the Bengals. It's like a similar scenario, right? Where like we both made moves to upgrade our defenses, but it's still just not quite enough. It's better, right? We're not going to be the bottom 3, bottom 4, defensive scoring. I think literally the Cowboys and the Bengals were like let up the 2 most points in the league per game last year. Like straight up, like we were the bottom 2 defenses in points allowed. That's not even a joke. So it'll be better than that, but like I don't think it's out of the top 10 or out of the bottom 10. Sorry. But what do you think about your defense, though, actually, Rashid? Because actually, that's a good take, like, or a good, I guess, segue to that point. Because I've been paying more attention to the Bengals moves than I have the Dallas moves in terms of on defense. So, like, you got Quinnen Williams. I think he came over maybe a year prior from the Jets in a trade, and then you got guys like Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, and I think there were maybe even some draft picks you guys made.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only question with this team is going to be the defense. I mean, the offense can clearly be one of the best in the league.
Mm-hmm.
If they can just be average, just slightly below average, that'll make them, because they're going to average about 30 points a game. We just don't need to give up 35.
Right.
I mean, Caleb Downs, he's a baller, out of Ohio State. He's definitely going to be a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
And don't sleep on even the safety that we brought in, Jalen Thompson from Arizona. He's actually out here from out here in Paramount, California. And to Walt's point about our linebackers, yeah, I mean, that could be our weakness. I mean, every defense does have a weakness. I agree with you. But we do have the Marvion Overshawn. He's coming back from injury, so he should be fully healthy, and our linebackers should actually be improved just from him being back.
Dang, I like that. That's a good cut. That's a good pull, man. And I love his name too, DeMarvion Overshawn, man. That's classic. Yeah, no, that
say that 5 times fast.
Right. But no, I mean, y'all have people who can put stuff together and make plays in key moments to prevent like a down the stretch, touchdown or game tying, drive or something like that, right? Like it's not going to be just a complete pushover defense. So I think it's fair to say that those games that y'all lost last year that were 1-score games that you guys put up 30, but the opponent put up 33, or you guys put up 40 and the opponent put up 41 or some shit where it was close and it was a high scoring, shootout, but your defense just needed to make one extra stop. I think y'all will be able to make that at least like one extra stop more often than not. And I think that's enough to ask for a defense that, again, was like bottom 2 in points allowed last year. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of other guys I would bring up. I think you brought up Jake Ferguson, and we kind of glossed over Javonte Williams. So let's actually give Javonte Williams some love real quick. Javonte's going over here at the, where is he going? RB17, so pick 47 in full PPR matches or settings, and had an amazing week or a year last year. I mean, he finished as the RB11, which he led the league most of the year, I want to say, in rushing, and then had kind of like a little bit of a downturn after the bye, but got off to a really hot start this last year, and just was a nice surprise for people who decided to take a chance on him, because he was super low in drafts. Like, I would say he's probably like a round 7, round 8 guy. And he finishes as a top 12 RB and led the league for you, or like pretty much led your running back room. If you didn't have a reliable guy, like he was one of the few reliable running backs, was Javonte Williams. And so maybe a couple big dudes got hurt that or were underperforming. I know like a Derrick Henry was someone who was underperforming early on last year. he was someone who actually you traded for halfway through the year and got a good deal on because people were just like, get him off my fucking team. But Javonte, if you had him, he easily stepped up for you in where you thought Derrick Henry was going to be leading your team as the running back position. It was actually Javonte Williams. So, 11 touchdowns, 1,200 yards. He finished with 252 attempts with a 4.8 yard average. And again, the running back 11, like what more can you say? It was a really awesome year for him. Do you think he can do it again? Are you worried that maybe now, like, there's nobody really on the team that you're worried about behind him? Not Malik Davis, not Jaden Blue, not Phil Maffa, who is, I think he might be a rookie. No, he's a second-year player. So there's nobody behind him who you think is going to like come in, split carries with, or take, high value looks from him. So are you happy with where Javonte is going? Are you actually maybe thinking like this is kind of an undervalued spot for him? I mean, he's going right around Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, like kind of right below those guys.
Absolutely, Ty. I would reach for Javonte Williams. I mean, he's going to retain that workhorse role. As you said, there's going to be no competition. I mean, those guys will not hardly be on the field. I mean, this is a true bell cow type running back. And, those type of running backs are as important as ever, this year in fantasy. He broke out last year, and I was one of those guys that picked up Williams in a few leagues last year. So, and they invested in him with a 3-year, $24 million contract.
Oh,
so,
shit.
I mean, in this explosive offense, he had 11 touchdowns last year. He could easily approach that again.
Nice. Yeah, maybe I'm like a little too hesitant on Javonte for some reason. I don't know. Like I would still pick up guys like Kyron Williams over him, who's going like a little bit higher than him, but like, maybe Etienne or probably not Scatterboo. And then you get down here with like Bucky Irving and Trevor Henderson, I probably would still pick up Javonte. Like you're right, but yeah, I mean, I like the optimistic outlook on him for sure. And Walt is saying you think Dallas's defense as a whole is going to be somewhere in the 15 to 20 range? Oh, okay. Oh, he's saying he'd like Williams and he'd take him over Kyron. Interesting, bro. Interesting. So that's a bold take. And I kind of like it. Because Javonte has the potential to be like a top 10 guy for sure, especially if they're going to be utilizing him in a way that is just like, sure, he's only getting like 15, 18 carries a game. He never really quite had more than 20 carries in any game last year except for one. But that could easily go up. Like maybe they were tempering their usage with him for whatever reason. I mean, it was his first year there, and I think he was coming off an injury, or maybe no, he actually did play 17 games a week the year before, but just not great averages, right? 2 down years on Denver, and then they move on from him. Denver does. Comes to Dallas and just looks like a completely different guy. And he gets the usage to boot. So do we see his attempts go up? He got 252 attempts last year, 51 targets. Do we see that all go up across the board? Probably. I don't know. I don't think there's anybody like we were talking about who could steal any kind of like meaningful work from him. So yeah, I get the hype on Javonte. I get it. So you guys are convincing me to go Javonte in more drafts now. That's funny, but I do like what I see there, and great call with the 3-year, $24 million extension, because that does mean they're investing in him, and he's clearly happy there. They're happy with him, so I like that. Williams saw less touches because of poor defense. With the defense getting better, he will get more. Actually, yeah, because if you think about it, poor defense means they're usually in like pass first scenarios, right? They can't really establish the run game because they're usually maybe playing from behind or playing with like a close or a very small lead potentially if they are ahead. So yeah, no, I actually totally, that makes sense. Cool. All right. So Jake Ferguson. Give me your justification on why Jake Ferguson is completely being disrespected when we talk about where he's going. He's going in round 11 as the tight end 11. Is there a reason why? Because he finished as the tight end 4 last year. Is there a reason why he's being so disrespected? Is it because he finished the year with like 4 down games essentially? And like,
Well, I mean, I agree with his draft cost. I actually have Ferguson outside of the top 12 tight ends.
interesting.
Definitely, I mean, it's because there are three other options ahead of him for touches. He's not going to get the ball before CD, Pickens, or even Javonte Williams. But,
True.
He did flash early in the season. That's pretty much why he finished so high. But that was while CD was hurt.
You're right.
And, he had a stretch of 8 straight single-digit fantasy point games when his snap percentage was less than 50%. So, I mean, as long as there aren't any injuries, there's other tight ends I'd rather have in that range. And he's going to be very touchdown dependent.
That's really great points. You're right. I mean, the clear spike games that he had was literally it correlated right around when CD got hurt. It was literally the same game that CD got hurt, where he had his his season high target share with 14 targets, and he caught 13 of them for 82 yards. So, and the next 3 weeks, he had 4 straight weeks of touchdowns, actually. And, just that was essentially while CD was still coming back and or completely out. So second half of the year, 2 touchdowns in 8 weeks. That's just not going to get it done, especially as a guy like you mentioned who's touchdown dependent. So sure, yeah, tight end 4 was his finish last year, but that number is deceiving because it wasn't as consistent. And again, when their offense was fully functioning, so to speak, he wasn't really the second or third option. He was the 4th guy, right? So yeah, no, it's fair that he's going down here around the likes of guys like Dalton Kincaid and Isaiah Likely, and even Dallas Goedert is kind of down here, who I think maybe Dallas Goedert is kind of being a little disrespected. I could actually see when we actually move on to the Eagles, we'll take a look at who their pass catchers are, and we'll realize very quickly that like Dallas Goedert is going to have to step up in a big role here in this offense if they're going to even have some semblance of success through the passing game. That unfortunately, I don't necessarily think Devontae Smith is capable of holding the wide receiver 1 position in the same way that like an AJ Brown did, right? And demanding sort of that, or being able to work through double teams, or maybe demanding the coverage that a true wide receiver, not that he's not like a quote unquote true wide receiver 1, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's really just a really awesome wide receiver 2 who kind of needs like an actual other running mate on the other side of him, at least like a 1A, you know what I mean? Who can be a little bit of a pressure release valve for him, because I don't know if, again, Devontae Smith, and I don't want to jump the shark too soon because we'll go down that rabbit hole when we get there, but yeah, I'm just having my worries. So to wrap up the Jake Ferguson point, what would be the best case scenario if you saw Jake Ferguson as sort of like his ceiling? What would his ceiling be in your mind?
I mean, injuries can be predicted, but it can happen at any given time. He can move up the pecking order. I mean, at 6'5", he can still be a dominant red zone threat. So he can still get 6 or 7 touchdowns. He could be boom or bust. He could also have spike weeks in those shootout type of games that we've mentioned. I feel like his ceiling could be like a tight end 7, tight end 8 range.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. And where you're getting him, he's someone who you could quote unquote start every week as a tight end for you. But there may be weeks where you see a guy on the waiver wire and you decide to stream over him, and you don't feel as bad benching Jake Ferguson for like a Dalton Strange or AJ Barner or something like that, who maybe has a good matchup that week and you're streaming them, right? And you just decide to, because you don't want to necessarily drop Jake Ferguson, you just bench him for that week or something, right? I could see that being like an interesting way to utilize Jake Ferguson. Walt is saying they're super high on Lemon in Philly, but who knows with a rookie? Okay, all right, we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at that next, in fact. So any final thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys, them boys? Is there a rookie that we missed? Did they pick up a rookie, like skill player? Definitely not a running back. Any wide receivers?
Yeah. I mean, the only young options is I would say is Jaden Blue, but I don't think he'll be a fantasy factor. We do have Ryan Flanoy at wide receiver,
Right.
who definitely flashed for like 2 different weeks. When he got the opportunity. But other than that, there aren't any rookies, that we can really just take a look at here. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we've pretty much hashed on these Cowboys for a little bit.
Nice. Well, we covered a lot with them. I think we definitely did our diligence, and
Absolutely.
I like the outlook. And the biggest, I think, cool caveat that we discussed was their schedule and how many primetime games they have, and especially how many road primetime games they have, and that there's a stretch where they have back-to-back road primetime games, and there's 3 straight primetime games in that span. So I don't know how that's going to factor into maybe what we think they're going to how they're going to perform in those primetime games. All I know is that Dak Prescott has been in pretty high spotlight moments, big spotlight moments, and he's not necessarily like a choker or whatever. I wouldn't look at him like that. So it's encouraging to me. It's not necessarily a detractor or anything like that they have all these primetime games. So it's just a cool call out. So thanks for bringing that up. Cool. All right, well, let's talk about the Philly Eagles. Biggest news, obviously, is the fact that they lost A.J. Brown. And we have Walt bringing up the fact that they did pick up this guy, Mekhi Lemon, who we're going to definitely look at his film. 5'11", 192 pounds. So he's probably a burner, which, you're losing a guy like A.J. Brown. Mekhi Lemon, unfortunately, to me, doesn't replace that or even supplement that role in any way. So you're basically just getting another version of Devontae Smith, because Devontae Smith is basically, wow.
In Philly, they see him as...
Devontae Smith is 6 foot, so 1 inch taller, but he's 22 pounds lighter. That's crazy. That dude is skinny, man. But no, I think so. But still, my point being, you have these smaller receivers. You're losing a guy like AJ Brown, who's like 6'3" or something, like 220 or something, maybe 215, but still bigger dude. And it's so you're gonna struggle. My point being is, even if they have a lot of faith in a rookie named Mekhi Lemon, I think if they run into a team that has 2 big corners that just body the hell out of the line of scrimmage and jam these guys from getting off the line, I think it's going to be a problem. And I think we're going to see it manifest pretty quickly with their, offensive troubles for sure. Right. Nico Dobbs is saying, I would only draft Hurts or Barkley in Philly. Interesting. Yeah, I think those are, and maybe Dallas Goedert, the only guys you can really trust. They have no size at wide receiver, which means Goddard is going to get a lot of red zone looks. That was 100% what I was foreshadowing when I kind of alluded to Dallas Goedert maybe having to step up here. 100%. A.J. Brown, gone. He was a big red zone, kind of a target for them. I mean, Philly is a unique scenario, right? Tush push is a factor. Saquon Barkley is your running back. So red zone, quote unquote, looks are going to be few and far between for pass catchers, but still having a big frame body guy like A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, both of those guys are able to give you options in the red zone, right? With the absence of one of them, I think it adds a little bit of pressure and allows the defense maybe to, unless of course Mekhi Lemon and Devontae Smith are really shifty in how they get off the line of scrimmage, or maybe we scheme them open in red zone scenarios, it's going to be pretty tough for Jalen Hurts to find open guys in the red zone when they're a little smaller, right? It's going to probably be a lot more Dallas Goedert in that respect. So, whether they struggle or whether they have to find success through Dallas Goedert, or maybe in creative ways with smaller dudes, named Mekhi Lemon and Devontae Smith, either way, I think it actually is a good thing for Dallas Goedert in the long run. And if we're looking at where he's going in drafts, tight end 14, right above guys like Mark Andrews and who's another guy in this range? I guess Juwan Johnson. No, right behind guys like Isaiah Likely and Dalton Kincaid, and we did bring up Jake Ferguson, who's about a round above him. So yeah, Walt's saying he's still a late pick in fantasy, but where he's going feels like it's just a little too low for him. Like, there were some really big weeks last year where he had multiple touchdowns. He had 3 games with multiple touchdowns. He finished the year with 11 touchdowns. His yardage isn't amazing, but it wasn't really what was making you confident to start him each and every week. It was the fact that he, about 50% of the time, was able to get you a touchdown, and maybe 30% of the time of that, moments where he's getting a touchdown, he's getting 2 of those, right? So yeah, sure, he has down games. Everybody does. It's just these stretches of down games where it's like there's a bye week, and then he comes back 8.3, 4.4, 4.0, and then 4.7. So basically 5 weeks of just like not startable stuff. But he does finish very strong in the fantasy playoffs, where he gets 15.8 points on week 1 or week 14, 25 points against Las Vegas week 15. Or sorry, I did that backwards, or I skipped a week. Week 15 was 25 points, week 16 was 12, and then week 17 9.8. So not great, but still had a touchdown each and every one of those weeks. So I don't know. What do you have any faith in Dallas Goedert? I mean, and I know I'm asking you as a Cowboys fan, but like, if you were to wait on tight end like I do, right? And I am sitting here in the 13th round, and I'm like, you know what? It's about time I look for like a tight end that I can at least like get by each and every week. Would you like be willing to pick up Dallas Goedert, or would you be like, I'm gonna go Mark Andrews instead, or you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna punt on tight end even more, and go guys like, Jordan Mason or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, build depth for your running backs or wide receivers, right? Maybe take a flyer on KC Conception from Cleveland, or maybe you think Jalen Coker is due for a big year in terms of his volume and stuff. Would you forego some of that other depth and pick up Dallas Goedert as your starting tight end, or would you pick him up as your backup tight end?
You know what, Ty? Goddard, he could be a great value, given his current ADP at tight end 15.
Mm-hmm,
they're going to have to lean on him, with the reasons that we've already mentioned, with the, trying to find that new identity with this new wide receiver room. I mean, he did score double-digit touchdowns last year, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that he does it again,
right? Because
he's going to be the top red zone threat. I mean, it's going to be hard to find those guys at 6 foot, sub 6 foot tall. So I mean, and he could actually be the number 2 option now. Even last year, I would say that at times he was the number 3 passing option. So yeah, I mean, I think he's due for a big year. He did have a career low in yards per catch. He is getting older. But I think he'll still have a nice year. I'd take him before Mark Andrews for sure.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's a fair assessment for him, which it sounds kind of crazy because he literally had his best finish in his entire career last year. And he never topped more than 5 touchdowns in any season, and he had 11 last year. So for whatever reason, maybe it was the writing was on the wall with A.J. Brown already, or maybe they just I don't know, he was working in that system a specific way that they just hadn't utilized him literally at any other time in the past before. Yeah, sure, his efficiency went down in terms of yards per reception, but the fact that they made up for it with, his touchdown rate was nice to see. And so to your point, big body receiver, they lost a big body receiver in A.J. Brown. It's just going to be, he's probably going to have to not only fill in for more red zone scenarios, but also just for short yardage scenarios in the middle of the field where they need a quick middle of the field, 5-yard pickup for a first down or something on 3rd and 5. Or, he's the safety valve on a play action throw that like nobody gets open, or Jalen Hurts is feeling the pressure, so he just has to dump it off to somebody, and it's Dallas Goedert. So, I mean, he was already kind of doing stuff like that, but we're going to see that go up a bit, I think, right? So, yeah, I'd be happy to pick him up as my tight end 1, right? I think he easily could outperform this ADP. And to your point, I know Mark Andrews, people are kind of thinking he's in for, a comeback year just because the Ravens in general had a big down year just as a whole. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Lamar Jackson wasn't like 100% healthy. So sure, but it's a coin flip between the two guys. And frankly, they could both end up being pretty solid picks this year and finishing above their ADP. And if you're telling me like I have a shot of one or the other, and, Dallas Goedert is the guy I'm favoring in that scenario, but I have a fallback with Mark Andrews. Like, again, this is a reason why I just am not sold on drafting tight ends earlier than like the 12th, 13th, 14th round, because you don't really have to. You can find guys down here with value that could easily outperform their ADP, right? So yeah, no, I think that's a fair assessment on Dallas Goedert. And then, just quickly, Dontavian Wicks comes over from Green Bay, and right, am I making that up? He was at Green Bay last year, and yeah, and so pretty young guy, 25 years old. Just for whatever reason, Green Bay wanted to move on from him. He's their biggest receiver, 6'1", 206 pounds. So we could see maybe him getting utilized a little bit in maybe the A.J. Brown role, but he's not A.J. Brown. And they do have a guy named Mekhi Lemon that they drafted pretty highly. What was his draft capital? Round 1, pick 20. So, first round pedigree. And yeah, I mean, Walt's saying that Dontavian Wicks is their clear wide receiver 3. And what do we think about the wide receiver 3 on Philly? I mean, historically speaking, at least, since Jalen Hurts has been the quarterback, their wide receiver 3 has been virtually insignificant, just the football player. Virtually irrelevant in fantasy terms, right? So maybe you play them once or twice in like a daily fantasy spot because it's a tough matchup for the main guys, or it's a great matchup for the pass attack in general, and you do a flyer on a guy named Jahan Dotson one week, and he gets like a 50-yard bomb touchdown and wins your slate or some shit like that. But that's literally gonna be it in terms of the third option in this offense, or the third wide receiver, right? So yeah, just worth mentioning, I guess, but not in fantasy purposes. Mekhi Lemon, though, we're gonna take a look at his film, because this is what we like to do. Is we like to do the eye test to see if these young guys' talent can potentially translate into the NFL. And immediately, I like what I'm seeing. Fast dude, fearless over the middle of the field, great yards after catch. Seems like pretty good hands. Catching balls in traffic. Nice. And he's wearing number 24. Rest in peace, Kobe. Nice. Okay. He always seems to want to make another move. That might get him in trouble because he's a smaller guy, and like over the middle of the field, you probably just want to go down. But that's a nice little, what was that? Like a screen? Like a wide receiver screen? Nico Dobbs is saying, do you think Hurts' value is overrated now that A.J. Brown is gone, or are we hoping for rush push and his running ability? Oh, for tush push and his rushing ability? I would say, where's Hurts going? Because yeah, we are in a scenario where Jalen Hurts actually, no pun intended, his value could be hurt by the fact that A.J. Brown is gone. But if we're being honest, like Jalen Hurts, if A.J. Brown was still there, would probably be going like up here, right around where Joe Burrow is, or even above Joe Burrow as like the QB3. But, maybe even around where Lamar Jackson and Drake May is going. But he's getting a bit of a discount this year, and it makes sense. I think he's fine going around there. Like, I don't think that's too high for him if you're a Jalen Hurts guy. I'm not, but people are going to pick him up here and they're going to be fine. I think he'll be okay. He finishes the QB8 last year. He's going as the QB6. I think That's reasonable. The down weeks were just, he I don't know, man. He throws no interceptions, but there was one game where he threw 4, but he only threw 6 last year. It's just their scheme. Their scheme is just really low pass volume. So you're not getting him for that. You're getting him for this, which is all these rushing attempts, 14 attempts, 9 attempts, 10, 7, and then obviously these rushing touchdowns. He finished the year with like a 5-game stretch of no rushing touchdowns though. So that was a bit of a disappointment. I don't know. I'm not a Jalen Hurts guy, but I understand why people would pick him up here. What do you think, Rosh? Do you think Jalen Hurts is going too low here, or do you think he's going too high?
I believe he's appropriately drafted. I think his draft cost is appropriate. The thing that will give pause is the effectiveness of the tush push. I think teams are starting to figure out, different ways in order to, stop this play. And
right.
I think they're going to be more prone to want to give the ball to Saquon Barkley in those scenarios. So, I mean, you're not going to have a very high ceiling with him, but I will say that he may have a safe floor.
Okay. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. You're right. He's not scoring over 25 points that often. Like last year, he only had 2-3 weeks over 25 points. Whereas guys like Josh Allen, guys like Drake May, right? They were having games. Let's see, just so I can actually like back this up. Drake May had 4 games, so already double the amount of 25 plus point games than Jalen Hurts did. So, like you said, more volatile ceilings or like higher ceiling potential, right? And let's just take a look at I guess the sort of golden standard of quarterback, which is Josh Allen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games over 25 points, and 3 of those were over like 38 points. Right. So just super high ceiling, obviously the highest when it comes to quarterbacks. But and maybe 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, Jalen Hurts did have that ceiling. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't quite get there anymore. He only had 1 game over 30. Right. So like that's not the ceiling you want from your quarterback one if you're drafting them this high. But, he is going lower again than when he went last year or years prior. So it makes sense why his discount or his value has sort of dropped a bit in terms of draft capital. But I'm just not picking up quarterbacks this high anyways, right? Unless I do something crazy and be like, oh, I need to pick up Joe Burrow. Like I just got to do it, which I have done. And I almost always regret it, right? I almost always am like, you know what? I actually wish I had just picked up like a Javonte Williams or, a Mike Evans or a Breece Hall. Maybe not Breece Hall. Derrick Henry, right? Instead of Joe Burrow. But, it's just preference at that point, right? So Eagles O-line didn't look like its usual elite self, so it's back to normal. And then I'd have more faith in Hurts. So if it's back to normal, then you'd have more faith in Hurts because of the push. Okay. I mean, we'll have to see. I think they lost a couple guys due to injury last year, and maybe those guys are back. I'm not sure. We'll see kind of what camp looks like and what preseason looks like, and if everybody's full strength. And I mean, it looks like there's no like injury designation across their starting line here. O-line, Jordan Mailata is healthy, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. So like, Lane Johnson obviously is the big name there. So it looks like everybody's back and healthy. So hopefully they do, just for the sake of this offense performing at like a high level for fantasy and stuff. Hopefully they are good to go in terms of their offensive line health, but that's something to point out because you're right. They didn't look nearly as elite as they did in prior years last year. And I think that was due to injury for sure. Do they have an easy schedule like the Pats had last year? Okay. Let's take a look at their schedule real quick. Because I think, and then we'll finish looking at the Makai Lemon highlights that I completely disregarded. Where's their schedule? Okay. Week 1, Washington at home. that's a good matchup. I think that actually could be a fun game. Probably a nice shootout season opener. And then it's at Tennessee, easy matchup. Then it's at Chicago, probably an easier matchup. Then it's at home against Los Angeles Rams, and it is a 10 a.m. game. And you know how I feel about West Coast teams traveling to play against East Coast teams for morning games. It almost always means that the West Coast team is a little sluggish out the gate. So this could be a game where we see Los Angeles look not really as elite as maybe people are expecting. So that actually could be a sneaky upset by, quote unquote upset by Philly, right? Then it's at home against Jacksonville, and that's in London or some shit, right? Because that's 6:30 a.m. Interesting. Then it's back home against Carolina, and then it's home against Dallas at a primetime game. So they have basically 4 back-to-back home games, but one of them is technically in London. So, whatever. And then it's at Washington, then it's New York Giants, and then it's Pittsburgh, then it's Dallas, then it's Arizona, then it's Indianapolis. Damn, so they kind of do have an easy schedule, man. And then Houston, of course, is tough. And then Seattle and then Houston back-to-back are pretty tough. But those are both home games. So they have kind of like softer matchups, but those soft matchups are road games. And then home games against tough matchups. But like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like this outlook for them. And then they finish up with a Week 17 matchup against San Francisco on the road. So their fantasy playoffs look pretty tough. Seattle, Houston, on the road against San Francisco. So those 3 weeks actually kind of scare me a little bit. But like, Saquon should be fine, and Jalen Hurts should be okay too, theoretically. But if you draft Jalen Hurts, I've said this before, get a backup quarterback. Just do it. I mean, you should have a backup quarterback regardless, even with a guy like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I mean, especially guys like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. But like, even with Drake May, like, have a backup quarterback. You should always have a backup, right? But Walt saying no schedule will ever be as easy as that Pat schedule last year. Probably. Yeah, they actually played absolutely like the lowest win rate opponents probably out of any team. I want to actually look this up. Win percentage of Pat's opponents last year. They had the easiest schedule where the percentage for all 2025 opponents, what was their opponents combined for a .531 win percentage? Giving the, wait, no, sorry. What? Come on, I'm asking for last year, bro. Yeah, the AFC as a whole was pretty awful last year. Anyways, Google AI is not gonna give me the answer I want. Maybe I'm doing bad at asking it, but anyways, yeah, I don't know if anybody could possibly have a easier schedule than the Pats had last year. But regardless, this schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles looks pretty good this year. So, I'm not mad at a lot of their early weeks, especially. Right. And even down the stretch. But once you get into playoff season for fantasy, that's kind of where things tighten up. And so I would just say this. If you're a Saquon Barkley guy or Jalen Hurts guy or even a Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert guy, probably less Dallas Goedert because, like, you probably already have like a backup tight end or somebody like that. But just know they got you there. Great. We're going to have this conversation come fantasy playoffs. And unless something crazy happens with either Seattle, Houston, and or San Francisco, none of these games look friendly in that respect to me for any of these players. And that's just how I feel about it. So anyways, let's take a look at the rest of Makai Lemon's film. But any last minute, I guess we didn't really talk about Saquon Barkley, but what are your thoughts on Saquon, Rasha? How do you feel about him this year?
Yeah, well, I'm expecting a bounce back for Saquon. We're only 2 years removed from him having that historic season, right? I mean,
true.
And they got to get back to what got them to the Super Bowl, which was running the football. And I feel like it was just a lot of chemistry issues with the team as a whole. And I think a lot of that had to do with A.J. Brown, demanding the ball. So they were force-feeding him a lot. So I just feel like, they're going to get back to what they do best. They do have a new offensive coordinator. that may be something to touch on as well.
Mm.
So, I mean, I like his outlook. I like where he's being priced, and he could easily be a top 5 running back.
I like that. Yeah, because right now he's going down here as the running back 10. So he's going behind guys like Omarion Hampton, freaking Chase Brown, Devon Achane, right? Like, James Cook has been creeping up people's draft boards. So Saquon's going behind all of these guys, which 2 years ago, that would seem insane. And especially, and I think the reason why maybe he was at a discount his first year when he was at Philly, despite him basically surprising everyone, not necessarily in a way that was surprising talent-wise, but I think the surprise was he was as efficient or was given as much volume as he was given, because Philadelphia, notoriously, with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback, he takes carries, and he takes goal line carries especially. So maybe we were worried that Saquon would be a little devalued because of that. And his draft capital reflected that. If you took a chance on him that year, he basically won you your league almost single-handedly, right? Because that's how good he was. Fast forward to the next year, which is last year, and I mean, you said it. They basically had sort of these weird locker room dramatics where AJ Brown was unhappy on the sideline, or AJ Brown was in the post-game press conference talking about how, hey, that's, you talk to him or some shit, right? Like, I forget exactly what he said, but like there were definitely multiple moments where it was evident that stuff was not going well within the locker room, specifically pertaining to Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown's relationship. So now that AJ Brown's gone, that locker room sort of fog or negative aura is gone too. And even with sort of the absence of the talent of AJ Brown and what it means for that offense, I think the camaraderie will be better, and there will be less distractions and less sort of tension between dudes on this team. And so even if the offense struggles a little bit in the pass attack, at least Saquon will be more relied upon. And I mean, he has to be, right? But also, this is his 29th, he's 29 years old. So he's pretty much right at the end of where we would expect somebody's sort of prime window to be. We saw Derrick Henry do it in his, past 30. So we know it's possible, but not everybody's going to be Derrick Henry, and not everybody's going to be able to be Saquon Barkley, even making it this far, being as good as he has been. So we'll see if he can get back up to over 300 attempts. I think he could. He had 280 last year, when the previous year he had 380, 345. I don't think he'll get close to 345, but I think he'll definitely make it past 300 carries. And I mean, he doesn't have to have 5.8 yards per attempt, which is wild that he did that 2 years ago. Even if it's like low fours, 4.2, 4.3 yards per attempt, if he gets 300 carries, I mean, you're already talking about 1,200 plus rushing yards, and give him double-digit touchdowns on the ground, maybe even a couple through the air, on top of like 50 plus targets and maybe, 30 plus catches. You're talking about like an easy running back 5 finish, whereas he's going as the RB10. So I think I am a little higher on him than where he's going. I would be fine to have him as my RB1, right? If I decided to go like wide receiver my first 2 rounds, and then I'm coming up on the turn with like a Saquon Barkley looking at me, and I need to make a decision on who to pick up for my running back 1, I would be more than stoked to pick up Saquon Barkley, as if I went back-to-back wide receivers for my first 2 picks. So that's where I'm at on him. I'm sure he won't be there, because I'm sure someone will reach for him. He just is that good, and maybe people are higher on him than maybe I am. But yeah, I like your assessment on that. What do you think about? Real quick, what do you think about this rookie Mekhi Lemon? Have you heard anything about him?
Well, actually supposed to be a top 10 draft pick. He had some comments in the media that, the kind of, teams kind of shied away from him.
Really?
I didn't watch too many USC games. We'll have to see what he looks like on tape. But we've seen rookie wide receivers have impacts. I'm not sure if this is the ideal situation for him, but he can emerge as the team's number 2 wide receiver just because of the wide receivers behind him, and Dontavian Wicks, Hollywood Brown. These guys they had plenty of opportunity to emerge as their respective team's number 2 wide receiver last year, and they didn't do that.
Right.
So I could definitely see Lemon having a pretty good season. Maybe 800, 900 yards, 5-6 touchdowns. That's respectable.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, I'm watching his tape right now. His speed isn't striking me, in any kind of big way. Like, he definitely just seems sort of like a shifty slot guy. Smaller dude, obviously 5'11". I think he was like 190 or something like that. So definitely not a huge dude. Here's a nice across the middle. That was a post. It looks like he takes it to the house. So that's what I want to see more of. Let's see what his 40 time was. Makai Lemon 40 time. 4.46. So on the faster end, but not like all world speed or anything like that. Nico Dobbs says, Saquon's season last year looked like Derrick Henry. A lot of people frustrated with poor performances. True. Walt says, though, I think his struggles last year go back to what I said earlier about the O-line. Right, like their O-line was hobbled or just not nearly on the level that we've seen it in the past, especially the prior year. So, that could be a big explanation as to why Saquon also struggled, not just the sort of locker room drama that A.J. Brown found himself in the center of. But, I think I'm higher on Saquon for sure than where maybe his draft stock is, but also just like I know he can finish higher than what he did last year. Definitely a down year for him. So, but as far as this guy, Makai Lemon, he clearly isn't going to be the burner of the team, but he could be, if he develops his route running, he could be that sort of dangerous gadget slot guy who's just able to get open anywhere on the field. I'm talking about guys like Cooper Kupp. I'm talking about guys like Puka Nacua. I'm talking about guys like even like a Antonio Brown type, right? Like, even though Antonio Brown is probably a little more elite than him. And then even like a Stephon Diggs kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but Stephon Diggs was more of a burner than this guy is. But so if he can find his groove in that kind of a role, then this offense will, to your point, I don't think he's going to get like over 1,000 yards. I think 800, 900 is probably his ceiling. Maybe 5 touchdowns is reasonable to say that's his ceiling too. But, where he's going in drafts, let's see where he's going in drafts. He's going as wide receiver 44. So people are picking him up right around guys like Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers, Ricky Pearsall, and above guys like Quentin Johnston or Jordan Addison. I think I would pass on Makai Lemon for maybe any of those other guys. Maybe not Jacoby Myers or or Josh Downs, because I don't necessarily believe in those guys. But like Ricky PJ probably would pick him up over Makai Lemon, even with his injury history. Quentin Johnston, I'd probably take a shot on him of doing anything remotely close to what he did early last year again over Makai Lemon. I think it's just like, why not? I'll let him do this for the first 4 weeks again and then trade him high, right? Even though I didn't last year and I kind of kicked myself for that. But yeah, I don't know. Makai Lemon, it seems like he could be good, but he's just not passing the eye test with flying colors for me. He's not like wowing me. He's good. He's super solid. Definitely first round talent vibes, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on him. And I want to know what he said. Wait, so Rashe, controversy. What did he say? The Makai Lemon controversy centers on his viral stoic, awkward demeanor during the 2026 NFL Combine media sessions, followed by a draft night phone call blunder involving the Pittsburgh Steelers just before the Philadelphia Eagles traded up to select him. Social media critics and online users pointed out that Makai Lemon's unconventional body language, intense eye contact, and shifting posture during his podium interviews. Unfounded rumors, unverified reports claimed that he bombed team interviews, though general managers and executives later dismissed the online noise as typical pre-draft smokescreens. Lemon later called the appearance a learning experience. Interesting. So, I don't know, man.
I don't think he necessarily came out and said anything that was like very derogatory.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it's kind of a similar situation to Shedeur Sanders. You know, maybe like, you know, kind of like an arrogance, you know, like overconfident. I mean, it's weird. I mean, I don't think he really said anything that would really, you know, lower his draft stock per se. So, yeah, I mean, it was weird how they treated that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, maybe it was like a little bit of smoke and mirrors, like just GMs in their sort of pre-draft spycraft or whatever you want to call it, right? They're just trying to devalue a guy because they don't want somebody else picking him up before then or some shit. Like, who knows what it was, but yeah, that is funny. It's not a big enough story for me to be worried about that. But it's good to look in and check to see if there was any sort of like merit to that narrative. But Nico or Walt Grizzly is saying above answers your Patriots schedule question, by the way. Oh, okay, let me look up. The 2025 cumulative opponent win percentage or win rate for the New England Patriots was .391 based on a combined opponent record of 91 wins and 147 losses. So yeah, they were playing guys on average teams well below 500. So yeah, I don't think I've seen a team have that soft of a schedule in as far as I can remember just off the top of my head. So yeah, that's crazy. But his interview wasn't bad, just awkward, to be honest. Oh, okay, nice. Yeah, you know, and these guys are athletes. These are basically professional athletes. They're not professional speakers, right? We're not talking about them, you know, going to school for how to speak publicly. That's not what they're here for. So, and these are guys who are coming fresh out of college, so even less so of the media training of it all, right? So, got to give them a little bit of grace here. Got to give them a little bit of a pass for maybe some awkward moments on camera or in the middle of an interview. Like, I'm not gonna be too harsh on these guys. But Nico Dobbs is saying, is Makai Lemon going to have enough juice to play pro NFL? I like that. I see what you did there. And I think he could. I think the verdict is just he's in a scenario where he doesn't have another teammate who is the bigger body receiver. He's essentially the second biggest receiver on the team behind Dontavian Wicks, but Dontavian Wicks, I don't even think will have that significant of a role in this offense unless things happen that surprise me. But so that will be tough for Makai Lemon. The good news is that he's on a team with a guy named Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. So he won't need to do a whole ton for that team because their offense will just be able to pick up for this maybe deficiency in big body receivers in other ways, whether it's through the rush attack or behind their elite offensive line or through guys like Dallas Goedert, as we mentioned. So yeah, I think where he's going in drafts, just a little too rich for me. I would be much happier taking guys down here like Quentin Johnston, who's just going to be a depth piece on my bench. But we've seen him have moments where, especially last year at the beginning of the season, and even down the stretch last year in fantasy playoffs, week 16, 20.4 points, week 17, 14.8 points. Not bad. And he gets in the end zone. So like, you know, Quentin Johnston has already proven it to me. I've already seen it from him. I'd rather pick him up than try to take a chance on Makai Lemon being anybody. And Makai Lemon's ceiling, as Rasha mentioned, that he projects, which I'm in full agreement of, 800 to 900 yards, maybe 5 touchdowns tops, right? Where that's literally Quentin Johnston almost identically, right? Where he finished. So, and that was with a big stretch of down weeks. And he also missed 2 games this year, or 3 last year, technically. And, you know, and then a bye week, right? So 4 games where he was out of commission completely, maybe 3 technically in the fantasy season. But yeah, I mean, Rasha, do you think that's crazy to want to pick up Quentin Johnston and give him another shot over a rookie like Makai Lemon?
I mean, you're right, Todd. Quentin Johnston, he's already shown that upside, you know, and then, you know, they don't have Keenan Allen over there anymore. And who's to say that Quentin Johnston doesn't emerge as like a 1A, 1B type option alongside Matt McConkey.
Right.
One thing I do want to touch on, Ty, you mentioned Dontavian Wicks. I know we've kind of, spent a lot of time on the Eagles.
Yeah.
I think I'm in agreement with you that Lemon, he doesn't really just pass that eye test for me. I don't see him just having an incredibly high ceiling at all.
Mm-hmm.
You alluded to, Dontavian Wicks being like a bigger body receiver. He's like 6'1".
Mm-hmm.
Do you think if he was to get the opportunity there as the team's number 2 receiver, could he emerge and give you some of that wide receiver 3 flex appeal?
Yeah. That's a good question, because Dontavian Wicks has flashed before. Let's take a look at what his game log was last year, because where he's going on in current drafts, completely off draft boards, but in the games where there were 2 games where he had 7+ targets last year. One game, he caught only 4 of those passes for 38 yards. Not viable. He finished with 7.8 fantasy points. But the other game, which was his only bright spot, was 7 targets, 6 catches, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that was obviously like his big, bright game. I don't think anybody expected that to happen. If you played him that week in daily fantasy, he won you your slate pretty much single-handedly. But every other game, and after that, he 0 targets the very next week, 2 targets, 1 target after. So like he didn't even recapture the volume for whatever reason. And I honestly couldn't tell you why he just all of a sudden decided that team decided to target him 7 times. Maybe the game script was such that Detroit was shutting down Jaden Reed and or Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs or whoever the fuck was even playing that week for Green Bay. Or maybe it was that like dudes were hurt, because that happens a lot with that particular cast of guys. Like Christian Watson almost always hurt. Jaden Reed almost always hurt. Romeo Doubs had moments where he would miss time too. So maybe that was just a week where all 3 of those guys were out or some shit, and they had to force feed Dontavian Wicks. Regardless, I think the encouraging thing is, and what shows me that he might be capable with your hypothetical of performing in a place where he gets this opportunity, is this, hey, what's up, bro? Young Skin, hey, thanks for the follow, bro. Appreciate you, man. Is that he did perform in a flash of a moment, sure, but if he can do this again, and if, Philadelphia can unlock this potential from him. Hey, what's up, BTC Jacob? Thank you so much for the follow, man. Appreciate you. If they can unlock this potential from Dontavian Wicks, and they kind of need him, then he might be someone that you see people scrambling to pick up on waivers after a week 1 breakout kind of performance, right? So keep your eye on Dontavian Wicks. He might be someone that you just draft on the back of your draft in a deeper league just to get ahead of that potential, right? But I do think it's possible, man. Like you're right when you say like this is going to be a moment for him to get this opportunity. He's already been in the league for 3 years. This will be his 4th season. And even with 2 touchdowns last year in 1 game, he actually has had years where he's had 5 touchdowns and 4 touchdowns before that. So Young Skin is saying, real question, anyone on the Commanders worth picking up in fantasy? Oh man, that's funny. Walt Grizzly is saying no, but I would actually say there's an argument to be made that Jaden Daniels, even though he's going up here right around Jalen Hurts, could return that value for you. So last year, we know what happened. He got hurt, missed a bunch of time, and kind of came back and never was quite the same. Had maybe 1 good game when he did come back, and then the rest was just awful, and then they shut him down. So if he can recapture where he finished as a top 5 QB in his rookie year, and he plays all 17 games, and yeah, sure, there's a little bit of a problem or question marks with who is going to be catching passes over there. I don't think they're done with making moves before the start of the season. And, like, it's going to be tough for sure. It's a tough division. Tougher than maybe your average division. But I wouldn't be mad at taking Jaden Daniels. Probably not here. I like to wait on quarterbacks, but if he slid like I'm trying to be as objective as possible and not just spin my own bias on this because, again, just to give you a little preface, and a disclaimer rather, I don't pick up quarterbacks this high. Like, it's rare. So I wouldn't pick up a Jalen Hurts or a Jaden Daniels or anything like that because I'm more happy to pick up other wide receivers and running backs and stuff to build depth and pick up guys like maybe Dak Prescott down here in later rounds, right, in round 8, round 9. So that's me. But if you're a Jaden Daniels guy and you pick up quarterbacks that high, he's solid pickup. I wouldn't be mad at picking him up. Just to say that a Commanders player who I would pick up would probably be Jaden Daniels over anybody else. Nico Dobbs is saying Scary Terry. The thing about Scary Terry, oops, I literally typed in scary. He's actually, so he missed time last year. So last year was an underwhelming year. It wasn't just the fact that he missed time. It was also the fact that Jaden Daniels missed time. So last year, wash, right? Walt Grizzly is saying Scary Terry is old and not so scary anymore. And I kind of agree with you there. What do you think about Scary Terry, Raja?
Man, you don't want to, you know what I think about Scary Terry, and he's not scary. You know, I drafted him in Los League last year. You know, I'm thinking I have some of the best wide receiver depth. You know, with him, I had Mike Evans. You know, I just dealt with a lot of injuries, and it was pathetic, man. I think a lot of it was, you know, I was chasing those, you know, that big play ability.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I really don't see him, you know, as they, you know, mentioned, you know, he's aging now, you know, and he's coming off that injury. I just don't really, he's not one of my favorite picks for sure. You know, there's other wide receivers around him that I'd rather have. I would actually rather have Devontae Smith than McLaurin. I would rather have Zay Flowers, several other guys that I would take before McLaurin. I'm completely fading McLaurin. I mean, it's just pretty risky to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. It's risky, and you know, like that. It sounds crazy to think a guy who finished as the wide receiver 7 just 2 years ago is someone that you would not trust this year. But the reason being because age is definitely a factor. I think he'll have volume. I don't think that's the problem. But there are injury issues that you worry about. Last year, he only played 10 games. Sure, the previous 4 seasons, he played all 17 games in all of those 4 seasons. But before that, and he even started his career missing 3 games his first year and then 2 the following year. So, like, you know, is this maybe some of those injuries coming back to bite him a little bit? Or maybe he was just living on borrowed time, you know, through the good years of 4 straight years with 17 straight games played. And even with all that volume or all that playtime, he never cracked the top 12 or even the top 10 except for one of those years, which was last year with Jaden Daniels, or sorry, 2 years ago with Jaden Daniels in his rookie year. So, you know, this year I think Terry could be serviceable, but I agree with you, Rasha. I think it's a little too risky, and not just necessarily like the risk factor, but there are just other guys in this range that I would be much more likely and much more confident to pick up. Like even Devontae Adams, dude. I'll probably pick up Devontae. I don't know about Luther Burden. I think people are a little too high with him. Jameson Williams, we looked at his drop rate last year. He led the league in drops. He had the most drops out of any other wide receiver last year, and I still am looking at him like he's a stud for me, and I probably would still pick him up. Like, I don't know. But Young Skin is saying Chig. Oh, Chig Okonkwo? Oh, okay. That is an interesting name. Is Chig now on the... I think he is on the... let's see. Let's take a look at the Washington Commanders. Yeah, Chig Okonkwo. You're right. Chig Okonkwo is on the Commanders now. So we're about to take a look at their team in a little bit through their depth chart. I know we kind of spent a lot of time, much more time on the Eagles than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a quick one, to be honest. But yeah, so where was I going with that? I think that was just like a quick Commander side jaunt, and now we're going to get back on track. But yeah, those are the only guys I would probably target off the Commanders. Is Jaden Daniels, I'm probably going to fade Terry McLaurin. And then I wanted to bring up Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as the guy who is not even... Oh, yeah. So he's going down here as running back 39 or 40. I don't know who they have in front of him on the depth chart. Let's take a look. Nobody. But they do have Rachaad White, who's kind of maybe the 1B to his 1A. But there's nobody else back here. Who's Katron Allen? He's the rookie 6th-round pick that they picked up out of Washington this year. So I don't think he's going to be really that worrisome for Ja'Cory's workload. So, I mean, he's going down here basically in the 13th round. If you want to take a flyer on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he's essentially for free, and he could end up being like a solid maybe RB2, maybe fringe flex type guy that you're getting, at the back of drafts. So that's probably it, though. You would pick up Courtland Sutton over Terry McLaurin. I like that. Yeah, Courtland Sutton is actually going down. Where's Courtland Sutton going? Yeah, he's going down here in round 8. That's crazy. So you could even wait a few rounds and then pick up Courtland Sutton. You don't even have to pick him up over Terry McLaurin, right? Because Terry's going all the way up here, round 5. So yeah, were we so high on Merritt last year? I think I was just buying into the hype a little bit. I didn't pick him up anywhere. I think I picked him up in like one league, but people were just reaching for this guy because just the fucking bill of it all, right? Me and Maddie talked him up a bunch. I probably did indulge in the hype, but when it came to what I actually did in my drafts, I ended up not really getting him in a lot of leagues. So maybe that's something I should be careful of, is who I hype up a little too much and then not follow through with in terms of drafts. But maybe it was a good thing because I know he didn't pan out that much for a lot of people. Let's just take a look at his stats. He finished as the RB31. So, and had pretty much like 4 viable games. 1 in the playoffs, or 2 in the playoffs though, right? But like there was a stretch of time where he wasn't even startable for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then a bye, 7, 8 weeks plus a bye. So a 9-week stretch where you literally could not even start him. So yeah, that's tough. But he's going way down here. We've seen his upside. He clearly has that potential. And in those upside games, he's very efficient. It's just these down weeks where he's getting 13 carries, 33 yards, no touchdown. Averages 2.5 yards per carry against Dallas, right? But a lot of these games, no Terry McLaurin, no Jaden Daniels, right? So he wasn't even on a fully functioning team. And a guy who was a rookie, right? That was his first year to essentially be like one of the main guys on a team where you're missing 2 of your best players on offense. And now you're essentially like having to carry the load by yourself as like a rookie. Sure, some of these games, like he wasn't doing it all by himself. Like he didn't have the volume as like the top guy, but that just, I think, is something we should give him a little bit of a grace or of a pass for, right? Because during this 9-week period where he was basically unstartable, again, I think like most of that time, like Jaden Daniels wasn't even on the field, and Terry McLaurin probably half or more also wasn't on the field. So yeah, you're high on Chig. Okay. All right, Young. I like that. I like Chig. I mean, he looked good in a couple moments for Tennessee when he was on Tennessee last year and the previous couple seasons, right? I think he's been on Tennessee all 4 years of his career and has finished pretty consistently as like a top 21 tight end. That's crazy. Tight end 21 in each of the last 3 years. And it was really just through yardage, which you don't see that a lot with tight ends. Usually it's like the touchdowns is what makes them viable, right? But he gets decent volume and does do pretty well with yardage. So if he does see an uptick in red zone looks, Yeah, I could actually see him being pretty valuable. And where is he going? Back of drafts, tight end 18, round 15. So, yeah, I think Chig could be a sneaky little, just you pick him up as your backup tight end, or if you punt it on tight end like I like to do, and you're just like, this could pan out, or I just drop him for a streamer. Easy back end of your draft pick up where he could pan out and end up being like a top 12 guy. Again, if he just starts getting those touchdowns, which no more Debo, right? So maybe Chig is their red zone guy because Debo was pretty much their red zone threat when it came to the passing game. So yeah, because I think Zach Ertz was that for them, but no longer can play. I don't know if Zach Ertz is even in the league anymore. Yeah, he's a free agent, so he's not on a team. But yeah, JD blanket his tight. You think he'll blanket his tight end? I could see that. Did you see MSJ's body transformation? Yeah, I did see that, dude. He looks like a beast now versus 2025, where he looked like a toothpick. I did see that. And I think I made a comment that he looks like the fucking Terminator now. And he's really coming out to like prove to people that, hey, I'm not a little like boy anymore, basically. Like I'm not a punk. Like you're not going to punk me around on the field like you did, my rookie year, even in my second year. Right. So does that translate into actual production on the field and success on the field with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback? I don't know. We'll see. But I could see it being a year where he kind of proves a lot of people wrong. And even though I'm not a Marvin Harrison Jr. guy, I think he will make a lot of people happy that they picked him up. I could see that. Right. What about Devon Achane? Is he worth the top 12? With Tua gone and with Mike McDaniel gone, I think a top 12 pick for Achane. I mean, at least in full PPR, he's actually going down here as pick 18. So in this rankings, he's a little lower than that. But basically a top 6 running back, top 6 ADP running back, right? Like, I'm more on guys like James Cook. I'm not an Achane enthusiast, so to speak, but that is someone who would be fine to pick up. I think it's just, you're not gonna see this from him this year. I don't think you're gonna see these big 40-point games, or even the consistency that you saw through the air, where he's getting like 4 touchdowns through the air and almost a touchdown every week, either through the air or on the ground. Right? There were only 3 weeks in the entire season where he did not get a touchdown. So, yeah, and there's no QB. I think it's like Malik Willis, who's their QB right now, if I'm making that up. So, yeah. That's going to be a little bit of a struggle for me to pick up Achane this high. I'd probably pick up Chase Brown. I'd probably pick up Omarion Hampton. I'd probably pick up Saquon Barkley over Achane. Those are 3 guys that are going under him in drafts. Easily picking up all 3 of those guys over Achane if we're talking about running backs, right? So Dolphins are going to be Raiders from last year without Bowers. Yeah, Achane's going to be the Bowers. And Achane, he's going to have like 12 carries for like 40 yards, and then he's going to have like 10 targets for like 7 catches for another like 40 yards and no touchdown. And that's going to be his like average stat line. Is just they have to dump it off to him. That's the only way they can move the ball. They try to run it with him. It's just like a stuff every time. He's going to average probably like 3 yards a carry this year. Like no cap, no joke, no hyperbolic, no hyperbole, all that shit, right? So yeah. If the Dolphins go 0-17, I wouldn't be surprised. That's hilarious, dude. Rasha, am I being too harsh on Achane, dude? Or do you think Achane is a bit of a down year this year, or more of a down year than even what people are projecting for him?
No, Ty, you're right on the money. You're talking about pretty much the worst team in the league. Even the Raiders will be improved. Again, with Malik Willis at quarterback, a lot of those dump offs that we saw from Tua, in those scenarios, Malik will probably take off and run. So, in that sense, the targets, they were inflated. He won't get as many targets as he did last year. Again, there won't be as many, receiver competition. He may be the team's number 1 receiver. We may even see him line up in the slot sometimes.
True. Right.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
a good point.
the touchdown opportunity will be very minuscule. So I mean, I'm not high on him at all. I like to take guys from good teams.
Yes. That's usually the rule of thumb for me as well. Like I gotta have dudes on good teams, even if I'm passing up like sort of the wide receiver 1 on a quote unquote bad team for a player like on a good team who's maybe the wide receiver 2 or the secondary option. Like I'd much rather do that. Best point being Jameson Williams, like wide receiver 2 on that team. Probably not even the second option, probably the third option behind guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra, but he's still on a team that is going to score like 30 plus points a game. And so I'm willing to take that third option on that team over a guy like maybe Chris Olave or something who could be the first option on his team, but just might be inconsistent, or just maybe their team isn't going to be scoring enough points. And that might be an extreme example, but that's just like kind of the example that was off the top of my head, because Chris Olave is going right here. And I mean, you got Teddy Mack, you got T. Higgins going down here, and actually Jameson Williams is going way down here in like the 6th round. So maybe that's not a great example, but no, they're like Jalen Waddle. He's the number 1 option on that team, right? Theoretically, I probably would pick up like, Jesus Christ. I mean, there's not a lot of great names around here. Like Malik Neighbors, I know we got some good news with him that we'll talk about in a sec, but there's Colston Lovin up here. Emeka Egbuka isn't necessarily the second option, but I do like Emeka Egbuka. But so yeah, Nico Dobbs is saying HN's going to be stopped every drive, 100%. Browns and Dolphins are competing for the biggest disasters. Yeah, those are going to be basically the dumpster teams fighting it out in the dumpster bowl, pretty much. And Youngskin is saying I'm high on Bucky. I'm low on Bucky, to be honest, but I do understand why people are maybe high on him, quote unquote, based on where his ADP is. He's going super low in drafts. He's going lower than where he went. Well, I guess his rookie year, which was just, his first year in the league. So it's hard to say. He's super young. He's still a very young player. He's 23 years old. So we've seen a good year from him and we've seen a bad year from him. It's a coin flip as to which one we'll see this year. But I could see him outperforming his ADP. He's just going super low, right? I think I'd still pick up guys like Travion Henderson, even DeAndre Swift or David Montgomery, who are going below him over Bucky. But if all those guys are missing and I'm still looking for like my RB2, Bucky, I could do worse than Bucky Irving, right, as my RB2. So, down here in the 7th round, if you're picking up your RB2, way down here, then that you probably either picked up like a quarterback and a tight end, or you focused on all receivers or something like that. So maybe your draft composition was RB light, but again, you could do worse than Bucky Irving as your RB2. Like, I think it's not necessarily a bad call. But Rasha, I know you got burned by Bucky last year. What are your thoughts on him this year?
Yeah, he was my keeper. I thought he was going to finish as a running back 1.
Mm-hmm.
He did deal with the injuries and things like that. But
that's what it was. Yeah,
I'm high on Bucky. I'm a Bucky guy. I like his explosiveness. I think another factor for Tampa Bay was, even Baker with his injuries. Mike Evans. So it was a lot going on. They do have a new offensive coordinator there, and a lot of people are.
Oh shit! You turned into a robot.
And
oh shit! You're a robot, Rasha. Damn, we're losing you. All right, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought, Rasha. Nico Dobbs is saying, yes, Ty, a rookie year in his first year in the league. That's kind of how it works. Youngskin, hey, appreciate you, man. I thank you for I don't know if that's what you mean, if that's what you meant by that, but appreciate you. You're amazing too, bro. Appreciate you, man. Rasha, did we get you back? Or are you still a robot? All right, we'll give Rasha a chance to reconnect, but yeah. So that was a lot of side tangents, but we covered the Eagles. So let's move on now to who do we have next? We got the New York Giants. So New York Giants, I think the biggest storyline, at least the most recent storyline that came out, was the fact that Malik Neighbors will not be starting, or at least he's trending to not start the year on the PUP list. So the weird way to say he's trending to start the year playing week 1 is what it looks like. And so that's a good indication that we can feel a little confident about what Malik Neighbors could provide for us as fantasy managers, and where he's going in drafts is Rasha C3PO. Rasha turned into our droid friend. Now we're gonna have to pull a little reset. Okay, Rasha's back now.
Okay, I think I'm back, man. Man, yeah. Again, I'm high on Bucky Irving this year. A lot of people were high on Kenneth Gainwell last season, or coming into this season, they're high on Kenneth Gainwell. The only reason that Gainwell was relevant last year was because the Steelers didn't have anybody else to throw it to.
True.
So, a lot, and Aaron Rodgers, he wasn't throwing it down the field like that. So he had to check down, he had to, throw it to Gainwell.
You're right.
Bucky, he is pretty, he's decent as a receiving running back. So, and, he's a 3-down type of back. I mean, with Rachaad White gone, I think Rachaad White is actually a better receiving back than Gainwell. He looked good last year. I'm not going to lie. He did have some good games. But with the Jalen I can't think his name. With all these receivers that they have, I just think that Gainwell won't be utilized as much as he was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I agree with you there. Yeah, because to your point, Gainwell's best performances, he had I guess we'll say he had 3 games where he actually had like a significant amount of rushing. So 3. And we'll give him maybe a 4th where he had 50 rushing yards, but 3 games where he had 80 rushing yards, 92 rushing yards, 99 rushing yards. And so that was like clearly part of his big 3 games. But he had, I guess we'll say, 4 other significant fantasy finishes where a lot of that work, or most of that work, if not all of it, came through the air, where he had 9 carries for 24 yards in this game, but he had 8 targets, caught 7 of them for 81 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns. Right? 2 receiving touchdowns. So that, I don't know if we see that from him this year. I don't think if they even need him to be that. And Bucky, I think we've seen Bucky actually have some games, maybe not last year, but before, actually early in the year last year, he was doing a lot of pass work. 4 catches, 8 yards, a touchdown through the air. 6 catches on 6 targets, 50 yards, right? 4 catches for 33 yards. 5 targets, 5 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. So that was his first 4 weeks of last year, where he was consistently getting targeted. He was catching all of them. He literally didn't drop a single pass through this stretch. And then when he came back, it was the opposite. He was just getting a lot of carries and not a lot of air work. So, except for 1 week where he had 6 catches or 6 targets and only caught 5, or did catch 5, but only for 14 yards. So it's interesting how he came back and all the pass work was just gone. I don't know what happened there. I don't know who was catching the ball for them. Maybe it was Rachaad White, to your point, if he was still around. Now he's gone. Now he's replaced with Kenneth Gainwell. We'll see how much pass work even gets divvied up to this backfield. But with Mike Evans no longer there, with Egbuka now as the main receiver, and with Jalen McMillan now having to step up into that receiver number 2 role, I think there could be opportunities for this backfield to get some pass work. And I know Baker is we've seen it in the past, he's happy to throw to Bucky. So maybe Bucky is actually kind of being undervalued right here, right? Like, when he's good, he's really good. It's just this injury situation, but he's young. He's 23 years old. I don't know. Maybe I'm convincing myself to be a little higher on Bucky this year, to be honest. What about wide receiver 2s? I love T. Higgins, and you like Jordan Addison. I'm assuming you said you mean by that, and then Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnson is more like a wide receiver 1B to Ladd McConkey's 1A, I think is what we're going to see. So I do like him where he's going. I think I did say I would pick Quentin Johnson up over guys like this Mekhi Lemon guy, right? So, yeah, but T. Higgins, obviously I'm a Bengals fan, so no Addison, not Addison. Yeah, because I'm off of Vikings completely this year. Like, unless your name is Justin Jefferson, and even then, I'm probably still not picking you up. I'm not picking up any Vikings. And that might be to my detriment because there might be a guy on that team that actually shows up and does something, but I'm willing to be wrong on that and just pass him up for someone else than to pick any other Viking up not named Justin Jefferson. And even then, again, I'm probably not picking up Justin Jefferson. But all right, let's move on to the New York Giants. Yeah, we're talking about Malik Nabers. Rasha, any reason to believe that Malik Nabers is not going to be able to start this week with this, or first week with this news that we heard? And are we happy with picking him up where he's going? Which, if I can find out where he is going, Malik Nabers. He's going.
It's going to depend.
Wide receiver 21. Yeah, round 5. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah. His draft cost is going to increase dramatically. I mean, if he's out there week 1,
he got an ad.
There's no competition.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's no competition for targets over there. They did pick up some depth pieces, with a Juju Smith-Schuster. They brought OBJ back.
Right.
But this guy, he has overall wide receiver 1 potential.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's risk with his injury, obviously. But he's going to get peppered with targets. He's going to get 10 targets a game. He has some of the most elite ability in the league.
Absolutely.
He's, as far as ability, he's up there with your boy Jamar Chase in my eyes.
Wow. He is elite. He can't be elite. We have seen him be elite, right? Rookie year finished wide receiver 6, 1,200 yards on 109 receptions, 7 touchdowns. And that wasn't even with super efficient catch rate, right? And I'm sure a lot of those were just uncatchable passes. So you're right. And we have seen guys come off of injuries similar to his, which was an ACL, that maybe it takes them a couple weeks, but they can be viable. And I just want to bring up a couple guys' names. We saw this with Cooper Kupp when he came back off of his ACL. I think it was either like a few weeks into the year after he got back from that injury, or maybe it was like the year after that. I'm not sure how long it took for him to actually be viable, but that was his Triple Crown year, where he literally finished as the top finisher in touchdowns for wide receivers, receiving yards, and I think receptions, right? He literally finished in the top of all 3 of those categories. Yeah, so we can see it. And this guy is elite enough to do that. But, how long does it take for him to get there? We'll see. To your point, though, he's going to get all the volume. There's nobody in here that I'm looking at in their wide receiving room that makes me think that they're going to take even a little bit of looks from him. And Youngskin is saying, is he healthy right now? The latest on Malik Nabers is that he's going to be probably healthy to start the year. He's not going to be on the PUP list, at least to start the year, right? He avoids PUP list to start the Giants training camp, which is a big milestone in his recovery process. So there's no setbacks, at least as of yet. We're feeling good about that. Let's hear what this article has to say. While the team had to place 3 players on the PUP list, none of them were wide receiver Malik Nabers. So Nabers is now recovering from undergoing a second surgery during the offseason, so I didn't even realize he had 2 surgeries. In the wake of last season's torn ACL, his status is among the biggest question marks going into the season, as the team expressed hope he will be ready for week 1. Giants head coach John Harbaugh, however, has couched expectations by noting that Nabers' knee injury is not simple. Nabers landing on the PUP list would have been a bad sign for his availability, though avoiding it doesn't mean he's 100% healthy either. He's still making his way back, and staying off the PUP list means he won't be restricted in practices. When healthy, Nabers has looked like one of the best receivers in football in his 2 seasons with the Giants. The former 6th overall pick earned a Pro Bowl honors as a rookie and averaged 77.6 yards per game across 19 games, a mark that would have ranked 6th best in the NFL last season. So, man, Is he going to be healthy? That's really the biggest question mark. Clearly, there's not a lot of clarity yet, but there is positive news, and so we can at least look forward to the next milestone in the positive direction with this guy. So we'll see. I think it's still too early to say, and clearly, like if you're drafting right now, in my opinion, you're drafting way too early anyways. I like to wait till the last minute to draft my leagues, like literally the week before the season even starts. So, but if you had to make a call now for whatever reason, maybe you're in a dynasty league, or obviously dynasty league, you would have already picked up Malik Neighbors, but who knows what kind of leagues are drafting at this particular moment. Maybe there are like some slow drafts that like are happening right now where like you can draft over the course of like a couple days or a week or whatever. I don't know how exactly those operate, but just wait as long as you can. And I'm sure once we hear some positive news, Malik Neighbors will start climbing up draft boards, especially if we hear anything definitive like, oh yeah, he looks great, he's cutting, and we even saw him play some preseason action. Then it's like a no-brainer, like, yeah, you're going to pick up Malik Neighbors in like the third round probably at the latest, right? So, yeah, you'd rather wait and see. Yeah, maybe even trade Achane for him. All right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, wait and see is the safer bet. Off topic, but who should be higher, DK or Pittman? Interesting. That's a good one. Let's see where DK Metcalf is going. Metcalf is going down here. Michael Pittman is going a little bit below him, so about a round later, technically, at least in this rankings. Walt Grizzly is saying Pittman. And Pittman is in Pittsburgh. That's funny. A little wordplay there. I don't know, man. They're both on the same team now, so it's hard to say who's going to be the number one on this team. DK clearly has sort of the seniority, quote unquote, in terms of he's been there a year longer than Pittman. But I could see, because we saw a little bit of inconsistency with DK last year. There were moments where he was getting 7 targets, but only caught 3 of them for 35 yards. Sure, that was against the Chargers, so tough matchup. But like, you didn't see him, you saw him perform suboptimally more often than not. And I think that had a lot to do with just like the disconnect maybe with Aaron Rodgers. So maybe Pittman is more of a Aaron Rodgers friendly receiver. Yeah, more reliable, right? And so that maybe feels a little safer from a fantasy standpoint. DK Metcalf will still have these games where he's like breaking away for a long touchdown and, he gets a 20-plus fantasy finish. But what I think is more likely to happen is that we see DK's volume take a step back. I don't think he averages maybe 6+ targets like he did last year. We might even see his ceiling target share come down to around 9, right? Maybe he peaks out at 9 targets in his ceiling game, right? Again, he's a touchdown threat almost every single play. He's that type of guy. It's just, is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to connect with him? And is Aaron Rodgers even willing to throw to him in those scenarios more often than not, where, maybe he doesn't have quite as much torque on the ball as he used to back in the day, right? Aaron Rodgers is getting up there. I think he's like 40+ now, So I think it's safe to say that Pittman is the better option in fantasy from a fantasy standpoint, just purely based on where he's going. Like, I could see them closing this gap as the season begins to approach here, because DK going a whole round above Michael Pittman makes sense right now, just because, again, DK was there last year. Michael Pittman's coming into a new system. But when you really stop and think about it as what is the more likely scenario, Aaron Rodgers could decide that Michael Pittman is just his guy. Like, Michael Pittman seems more of the Aaron Rodgers temperament anyways, if that makes sense. I think they could be more of like a personality fit. So that's my tangent on those two guys. But Rasha, I want your take real quick. What do you think? I know this is like a complete side tangent, but what do you think about the Metcalf Michael Pittman conversation? Is that fair to think that Pittman might outperform Metcalf, or at least be a better value for fantasy on a week in, week out basis than Metcalf?
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to just sit in the pocket and just take those hits that's required to make those long connections to Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to want to get the ball out quickly. And Pittman, he fits that mold. They tried to do it with Calvin Austin last year, and Austin just he wasn't built for that type of role. But
Right.
Pittman is. I'm not going to say Pittman has a high ceiling either.
Mm-hmm.
He could be a wide receiver 3, flex option. He could have numbers where he gets 7 targets, maybe 50 yards, maybe a touchdown.
Right.
I'm off of the Steelers in general. If there's anybody I'm interested in this offense, I would take a shot on one of the running backs.
Okay. Yeah, like a Jaylen Warren. Is there anybody else on this backfield that I don't want to get into the weeds with that, but is
of course,
because
yeah.
Gainwell's no
Rico
longer there.
Dowdle.
Yeah, and we'll do the AFC North next week. But yeah, I know what you're saying. So
yeah.
Rico Dowdle's there. That's right. Rico. So you would take a shot on Rico or Jaylen Warren over anyone else on this team? I can see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nico Dobbs is saying, Walt said first, DK is going to cry about less targets and throw a tantrum like the diva he is. Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers is going to hate that. And then Nico Dobbs says, the only player I want from Pittsburgh is Boswell. I met him in Atlanta. He's a great golfer. Oh, sick, dude. That's awesome that you got to meet him. Nice. Yeah, it seems like athletes across the board, athletes seem to just always be good at golf, or maybe not always good, but it seems like golf is like the classic hobby for football players during the off season, or even basketball players, and these sports where they're maybe much more athletic than your average golfer might be, but they love the game of golf, right? I love playing golf too. I actually need to get back out there. I might go try and play with my boy Matty Boots down in San Diego this week, so we'll see if I can make it out for that. But yeah, dude, Walt's saying, I don't know about that. Have you seen LeBron golf? Yeah, true. I guess I should have said not all great athletes are great golfers, but they sure do try. But yeah, so all right. No, I like that. Let's so we kind of wrapped up the Malik Neighbors thing. It's kind of just wait and see now at that point. At this point, I think the same can be said for Cam Skattebo. What can we even say about Cam? Like that, every single podcaster and talking head on ESPN and sports news shows have talked about with him. Like, we've seen the backflip, we've seen his antics off the field. We've heard that he's gonna clean his act up and that he's gonna be focusing on football once training camp starts, and I think it's already started for them maybe. So now it's all football. But LeBron is still better than Charles Barkley at golf. Yeah, than Charles Barkley golf swing. Yeah, Charles Barkley's golf swing is classically hysterical and insane. But I don't know how that shit is viable. He still gets clean shots with that swing somehow. You know what I mean? Tracy is that guy. Okay, so you think Tyrone Tracy is going to be the dude to have in this backfield? I mean, you're picking him up back of drafts. When Cam went down, he was pretty solid with his volume. And it wasn't like he was getting a bunch of touchdowns either. It was just he was getting a ton of volume and had, I guess, decent pass involvement, right? So 2 touchdowns on the year on the ground, 2 through the air as well. So 4 total touchdowns, but finished as a top 30 RB. So basically like a flex guy, but a solid RB2 once Cam Skattebo went down. That said, Cam is back, and I think he's basically where you're drafting Tyrone Tracy is he's the handcuff. He's probably my favorite handcuff just because of the volatility of that person ahead of him, of Cam Skattebo. But they love this guy on this team, right? So if Cam Skattebo is healthy, it's going to be the Jackson Dart, Skattebo, Malik Neighbors show. So you're essentially, again, just holding on to Tyrone Tracy because he's a valuable handcuff. He's essentially like the Jordan Mason of the Giants. So That's my take on him. He's solid if Scatterbo goes down, but you're not expecting him to be much more than that. Barkley fixed his swing years ago. Oh, did he? Oh, okay, so it's no longer just comically awful. Nice. Who is the wide receiver 2 here? Let's take a look. So it's Darius Slayton still, who is questionable, so I'm not sure how likely he will be to even start the year. But when he's good, or when he's, I'll say this, when he's the wide receiver, the main wide receiver option, I don't know if he's great because his catch rate isn't amazing. But when he's the second option, he has moments where he flashes. But last year, he only had 2 viable games. He even missed some time. I'm just avoiding Darius Slayton completely. I don't even think anybody is drafting him. Yeah, he's going all the way down here, pick 267. So even though he's listed here on the depth chart as their number 2 wide receiver, quote unquote, I think it's more going to be Darnell Mooney and maybe even Juju Smith-Schuster, who like leapfrogs Darius Slayton in that role. But there is this guy named Malachi Fields, 3rd round pick out of Notre Dame this year. So, rookie wide receiver. I do want to at least give him some time watching his tape, and we can make a determination on whether or not we think Malachi Fields could end up leapfrogging Darius Slayton for that wide receiver, sort of slot wide receiver role. Let's take a look. So Malachi Fields is 6'4", 222. Damn! That's crazy. Dude is a beast. That's wild, bro. Okay, real quick. Why is Dart high? Because people liked what they saw from him. I did too, but I think what scared me a little bit was the fact that he was just way too reckless. So he was good, and he reminded me of like a young Baker Mayfield, where he's just tenacious and competitive, and he's like the locker room guy, almost like a Johnny Manziel, but more talented than Johnny Manziel. Even though Johnny Manziel was like just a pure raw talent, he just, for whatever reason, was a galvanizing factor in the locker room, but he just had too many off the field antics. So Jackson Dart sure might have cleaned that up a little bit, or is more clean than a Johnny Manziel in that respect. But he reminds me of that type of player who dudes just rally around him. So, are we going to see Jackson Dart run as much as we did last year? I don't know. I think they actually don't want him to run as much, but then again, you do have John Harbaugh as your coach. So John Harbaugh's happy to let his quarterback run all over the field. I think they're just going to do it in a smarter way, right? So we talk about Jackson Dart just to show you. He's going as QB 11. So actually not really as high as maybe I thought, but it's really this stretch right here that had a lot of people stoked about what his long-term outlook could be. Because when he started performing at this level, it was pretty consistent before he got hurt, obviously, and we saw a ton of rushing, and he had 5 straight games with a rushing touchdown, and then finished that stretch with a 2 rushing touchdown performance. But again, got hurt, came back, then it was a bye, and then 2 out of the last 3 weeks of the fantasy playoffs, or just the fantasy season in general, were awesome games. He just had a down week against Minnesota in the semifinals, and hopefully you had a guy who could play instead of him that week, and you maybe saw that coming, but probably not, and that might have actually burned you in the semifinals with that 1-point performance, right? So, but this is, again, why people are picking him up so high, is these ceiling games where he's getting a ton of rushing work and he's getting touchdowns on the ground. So are we going to see that much from him this year in terms of rushing? I don't know. I don't think they want him to, right? But it is John Harbaugh. He's coached Lamar Jackson for years, right? For Lamar's entire career. And I'm sure he's going to impart some of that wisdom and that knowledge of a high rushing volume quarterback and how to protect yourself in the way that Lamar Jackson did to a guy like Jackson Dart. So we'll see. But funny that their names are kind of similar. Lamar Jackson, Jackson Dart. Anyways, You have one more. You have to hop, but you have one more question. All right, yeah. What's the next question, man? Thanks for tuning in. By the way, appreciate you tuning in and chatting, and great conversations. Always love it. But let's finish this Mekhi Field tape while we wait for Young Skin to ask his question. But actually, Rasha, what's your take on Scadaboo and Dart, man? Like, are you as high on Dart as other people? Are you high as Scadaboo as other people are? Or are you kind of hesitant like I am? Like, I probably wouldn't draft those guys.
No, I wouldn't draft those guys. I mean, at the same time, I wouldn't. I see why people would take Scadaboo or Jackson Dart. I mean, they're going to be featured pieces of the offense. You're talking about the team's starting running back, the team's, quarterback with rushing upside.
Yeah.
Right. I draft just like you. If I'm not taking Josh Allen, I'm pretty much just waiting on quarterback because there's so many other quarterbacks that can give that same rushing production. As far as if I had to choose between the two, I would go with Scadaboo just because, with Harbaugh as the head coach now, they're going to be a run-heavy type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Neighbors, he may not even get those 10, 12 targets now. They're going to lean on the run a lot more.
Yeah.
Scadaboo is clearly talented. This is a guy, he's going to get nearly 100 yards every game. He's going to get his 20 carries. He's able to take on that type of workload. Obviously he has to stay healthy.
Right.
I tend to target guys that are not injury prone, haven't shown that they can have an ability to get injured. And plus, I'm a Cowboys fan. So, I'm not going to take these guys. I'm not going to take any Eagles or Commanders.
Fair.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm fading them personally.
That's hilarious. And Walt Grizzly is saying, not going to lie, NFC East is boring as fuck. LOL. Yeah. Some of these other teams are like the Eagles, not super exciting, right? The Giants, I think if you're from New York, they're exciting, but like, I agree with you. I'm not like super stoked about them. Kind of reminds me of like maybe the Vikings. Like you're just not like excited about them. And then the Commanders, they get a bad rap. They're not super exciting, but I do like Jaden Daniels. So that's probably why I would say I'm more interested in the Commanders. But like Terry McLaurin is going to be great. They lost Debo. Zach Ertz is no longer there. There's definitely a lot of gaps in that offense, which we'll take a look at them last. But yeah, that's going to be a big question mark for sure. Okay, Youngskin asks, there's good tight ends this year like McBride, Bowers, George Kittle, Travis Kelce. If you don't land these guys, who are the next three available? Okay, so Walt is saying Laporta, Kraft, Warren. I think there's a lot of different options you have there, right? So you just mentioned guys, McBride and Bowers. Those are going to be your top two tight ends off the board, obviously, right? And we'll get to Kyle Pitts. But McBride and Bowers, your two top tight ends off the board. Let's see where they're going. They're going right here, round 3, top of round 3. Brock Bowers is tight end 2, and then right at the back or middle of round 2 is Trey McBride, right? So you're going to miss out on these guys if you don't pick them up in the first 2 rounds, which means that the drop off then after that is you're talking about guys like Colston Loveland, who I don't necessarily believe in. He's going down here at round 4. And then a tier below that, you're talking about guys like Tyler Warren, who Walt Grizzly mentioned, who I like in this range. So he's a 6th round guy. I think he could easily finish as like a top 3 tight end, especially if he continues what we saw, continues to do what we saw with him when Danny Dimes was the quarterback. This was amazing. I think he was literally like tight end 1 or 2 for much of the year until this bye week and until Danny Dimes went down, and then his production fell off a cliff. But he is someone who I'm targeting if I want. He's probably the highest I'll go for a tight end. I like to wait on tight ends. I usually don't end up with Brock Bowers or even the Trey McBrides of the world. And I'm definitely not picking up Colston Loveland, who feels just a way too high of a draft price for me where he's going right here in the 4th round. So I'm happy to pick up Tyler Warren where he's going. But even if I miss out on that, you're talking about Travis Kelce and George Kittle, who we have seen be elite tight ends in the past, but they're going all the way down here. I mean, look where, they're even going below Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts is going here in the 8th round, back of the 8th round, could finish as a top 10 tight end. He did last year. He finished as a tight end 2, but that was largely due to his insane 45 point week 15 performance where he caught 3 touchdowns, and the rest of the year he only caught 2 for the entire rest of the year, right? So no, don't worry. Hey, Youngster, that's why we do this, man. We're all learning together, you know. The reason why I can kind of go off of the top with some of these rankings is because I've literally been staring at them for the last 2 weeks. But before that, I didn't know where anybody was going. I took the whole offseason, I was like, I'm taking a full break from fantasy. I just want to, you know, clear my head and come back fresh. And we came back super fresh, and so fresh that I literally had no idea where people were even being ranked at, right? I had an idea because obviously, like, I know how people finished last year and where I would put them. But still, once you take a look at the rankings, it's hard to really gauge where people are going and what the, you know, fantasy pros say or the analysts and all this stuff. Like, you know, as much as I like to talk about fantasy, I'm still not one of the pros, right? I like to do this as a little side gig or whatever, as like a little side hustle. But like, you know, in terms of some of the main people who do this for a living, like, I'll defer to those guys 9 times out of 10, unless I have like a really compelling reason as to why I want to disagree with some of those guys. And some of those people and gals, some of those people are just like, you know, saying kooky shit just to fucking get a reaction. Sure. And then, you know, those instances, I'll obviously be like, nah, that's fucking dumb. Like, I don't know about that. But a lot of the times, like, they know what they're talking about, and so I'll defer to them. That said, I will still have my moments where I don't agree with the consensus, or I'll do things like pass up on guys like Christian McCaffrey or, you know, Josh Jacobs or some of these big names where I'm just completely off them, and it might not make sense to some people. Or I'll go pick up an Amon-Ra over like a CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson 2 years ago when CeeDee was coming off of his wide receiver 1 performance or some shit like that. Like, I'll do stuff like that. But more often than not, I like to look at these rankings at least for a baseline of information, baseline of knowledge, right? Oh, sorry, Rasha, were you trying to say something?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Because again, like, it's hard to know really the landscape of where everybody's thinking. And even then, these rankings aren't like end all be all. It really just depends on who you're drafting against, what type of league you're in, right? Like, these are PPR rankings. So if you're in a standard league, like, all these don't necessarily apply in the same way, right? So, but you're asking good questions, and that's the first step to really becoming like super proficient at fantasy, because there's so much information out there, man. Like, it could be information overload. Like, I've been playing fantasy for 14 years now. I'm aging myself, but man, I've been doing it for a minute. And, you know, the beautiful thing about fantasy is that it changes every year. Sure, there are people who we can think like, oh, because they performed last year at a certain production level or at a certain efficiency level, like, they're going to do the same this year. No, things can change. Things can change so quickly. That's kind of the beauty of it and the curse of it, right? So I love it. I will probably be playing fantasy football for the next 30 plus years just because I love it so much. You know, I'm sure there's going to be a day where I'm like, all right, I got to hang up the boots, you know, or the cleats or the goggles or whatever you want to call them, you know, the armchair quarterback helmet or whatever, right? I'm sure there's going to be a day where I retire. It ain't going to be anytime soon, though. I'll tell you that much. And I can hear my fiance in the background being like, fuck, more like 30 more years of this. Like, why am I marrying this guy? Nah. But we have fun. But all right, so yeah, just to rehash sort of the Kelsey and George Kittle of it all. Walt Grizzly is saying losing Debo is a positive for the Commanders, which is hilarious to think. Kelsey isn't a top 5 anymore, which I agree with you there. And I think the draft consensus also agrees with you. He's going down here as tight end 9 in round 10, 11, right? So even though he had a top 3 tight end season last year, he didn't finish really as strongly as you would like. And this year, I mean, he's 36. He just married the love of his life. Good for him, you know, Taylor Swift. But do we see him perform at this high of a level and stay as elite as we've seen him be? I mean, he finished 5 straight years tight end 1. dipped down to tight end 2 the next year, and then finished again as tight end 1. I think maybe his top 5 tight end days are behind him, but I could be wrong about that. But we'll see. You know, he is going way down here. So if you wanted to take a shot on him, like you're getting him for nothing. So he is someone you could make the argument of, if he does even remotely a little bit of what we expect him to do, like it's worth picking him up around here. But Kittle is actually going right around him too. Him and Kittle, same scenario. Older guys, Kittle's a little bit younger, but these are dudes who have consistently finished in top 5 tight end territory for most of their career, right? Kittle has been less consistent. He's also missed more time than than Kelsey. Kelsey actually has been more healthy. That's weird how that rhymed, but yeah, Kelsey has been more healthy on average than George Kittle. But again, you're getting both of these guys pretty much at a discount, right? And their risk is baked in. So Walt saying I wear goggles when I play fantasy football too. That's funny. Yeah, I was reaching for that one, but maybe I should get some fantasy goggles or something for game day. That might become my new thing. What about the Giants tight end? I didn't catch that. Let me see. They have Isaiah Likely now, and I think we've seen him have moments in the past where maybe not last year, but the previous season, he finished as tight end 16. He had a couple big games in 2024, started the year with a 26-point game, and then 4 weeks later, he had a 16-point game, and then never quite got back up to that production level. So that's a tough one. I would avoid that scenario. Like, he's going up here. I'd much rather pick up a Jake Ferguson. I'd much rather pick up if I'm talking a tight end in this range, a Dallas Goedert, who we just talked about. Even going down here to pick up like, let's see. Nah, I'm probably not Juwan Johnson. So I probably would draw the line there. But I'll let somebody else pick up Isaiah Likely. You know what I'm saying? And Walt Grizzly is saying avoid everything Giants. And I'm kind of right there with him. I think the only person I would realistically end up picking up from the Giants is not even Cam Scatterbo, actually. It might be Malik Neighbors if he stays at this draft value, but I know he's going to creep up draft boards as we hear more about his health. So even then, I probably wouldn't end up getting a Malik Neighbors, right? So I might end up with no Giants this year, just based off of where they're going in drafts, personally, right? Chigo late. Yeah. Oh, wait. Is Chig? Oh, no. Chig's at Washington. Okay, Chig's at Washington. Yeah, so Darnell Mooney. I'll say this about Darnell Mooney. He's someone who could be viable as like a DFS flyer, but I don't think you are. Yeah, he's off of people's draft boards. His best year was 2 years ago, where he finished as a wide receiver 31. Actually, I guess he finished as a wide receiver 23 his second year, where he had his actual best year, over 1,000 yards, 140 targets. So, you know, he's 5 years, almost 6 years removed from that now. Does he do that with the Giants? I don't think so. You know, I don't think so. So, yeah, I'm avoiding all Giants. I love Darnell Mooney, but I think I'm avoiding him right now as well. Cam is on that CTE speed run, almost as bad as Ayuk. Wait, what happened with Ayuk, bro? What did he just do? And then we'll move on to the Washington Commanders and call it here. But what the hell? Am I going to have to look this up? I will say Malachi Fields looks good. He's passing the eye test for me, and he's a huge receiver. So that actually might be somebody who could be a sneaky flyer. I might end up stashing Malachi Fields in a couple leagues for sure. That is the one thing I'll say. He did pass the eye test for me. So, but what happened with? It's crazy what happened to Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Oh, it's crazy what happened to them. Yeah, Walt Grizzly is correct. They play for the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers got hurt the first year that we thought they were going to gel together in terms of him and Garrett Wilson. And then Breece Hall as much of a stud he is, it's the Jets, and defenses are going to key in on your run game if you don't have a pass attack. So you don't have a pass attack, then your run game is going to suffer as well. And as good as Breece Hall might be, he's not Saquon Barkley. He's not Bijan Robinson. He's not even Ezekiel Elliott in his rookie year, where like on these teams, maybe less Ezekiel Elliott because actually that pass attack wasn't that bad behind Dak Prescott. But in terms of Saquon Barkley's first year, not a great pass attack. And in fact, they only won 5 games, but he was like a top 2 running back that year. So Breece Hall, again, it's hard to compare those two guys. He's just not going to be able to be good enough for where you're drafting him in terms of a fantasy perspective, right? I'd much rather pick up Kyren Williams, who's going right around the same round, the same area as Breece Hall. I would much rather pick up Kyren Williams. Good running back on a great team over maybe a great running back potentially, but on an awful team, right? I'm staying longer because I'm a Washington fan. Oh shit! All right, hell yeah, bro. All right, well we'll jump to the Washington Commanders then right now. But yeah, that covers it for the Giants depth chart. I think we pretty much exhausted all the storylines there. Let's move on to the Commanders. So Jayden Daniels, awesome rookie year. Last year, a little bit of a downturn. It was riddled with injuries, and he missed, I want to say, like 7 games or something like that. No, he only played 7. So he actually missed 10 games last year. And that not just hurts your outlook if you're a fantasy manager of Jayden Daniels, that hurts the outlook of every single player on the team. So we're talking Terry McLaurin, we're talking Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, we're talking Deebo Samuel. Like all these guys who were counting on that production from Jayden Daniels are now not really that viable in fantasy respect because Jayden Daniels only played literally 7 games last year. So fast forward to now, Jayden Daniels was shut down week 15, is healthy now, right? Doesn't carry an injury designation into this year. Let's just take a look if there's any news around Jayden Daniels and see if there's something we can garner from any stories that have come up recently. And no, it's just looking at like guys around him. So, and what his sort of outlook will be. And they're saying, you know, basically that he's going to have to step up in a big way this year because he will. He definitely will. So I like Jayden Daniels. He's someone who I believed in very highly in his rookie year. I drafted him in a lot of leagues his rookie year. It paid off for me. Last year, he was going too high in drafts. I ended up missing out on him. That was kind of a blessing in disguise because he got hurt and unfortunately only played 7 games. But regardless, I do believe in the talent. I do believe in the performance or rather the performance level he can play at. Also, his preparation. That's what I wanted to say. I believe in his preparation. He's one of the most diligent workers in the NFL. And that's saying something because you have to be a fucking psychopath in terms of your work ethic just to even make it to the NFL. And Jayden Daniels is someone who puts most people to shame with respect to his work ethic and his preparation. So I believe in that, and I believe in the talent around him, or at least the decent enough talent around him, right? I mean, we're looking at their depth chart right now. It's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as the starting running back, so talented, but you know he's still a second-year player. Maybe there's some growing pains there. We'll see how that pans out. Terry McLaurin, older guy, but still a very solid wide receiver. I don't know if we can see maybe a twilight of his career resurgence where, you know, he basically plays at elite level, flashing back to guys like maybe Larry Fitzgerald late in their careers. But then you have guys like Antonio Williams and Luke McCaffrey as the next 2 guys who are the next 2 options in this offense. That scares me a little bit because that means that there's really not a lot of pressure release for guys like Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's going to have to do a lot of this work himself, right? Chig Okonkwo probably will step up into a bigger role than what we saw him do in Tennessee. We took a look at his stats, I think the other day, where he's a big yardage guy, not a big touchdown guy. So maybe he sort of puts that together this year depending on how the Commanders want to use him, Debo left. So now that's a lot of red zone looks that, through the air that are gone. Maybe Chig steps into that role as the red zone target. Probably, right? But we'll see. Okay, so Young Skin is playing. If Diggs go to us, he might be good or get him or Terry. Okay, so if Diggs shows up to the Commanders, he might be a good option fantasy-wise, and also will help Terry McLaurin, I believe, for sure. That said, we'll see what happens with Stephon Diggs. I don't know if the Commanders, they would want him probably as a talent. Do they want him as a locker room influence? I don't know. As much as I like Stephon Diggs as a player, I think his personality has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And, even with this dismissal of the charges or allegations that were levied against him, which I believe they were dismissed, I still think teams are going to be a little hesitant to reach out to him, simply because if they do, they probably are doing it out of desperation, in which case then Stephon Diggs knows he has leverage, and in which case might end up being a liability more than an asset to your team, right? In general, maybe not on the field, but probably in the locker room and potentially even off the field, right? So the Commanders probably could use him for sure, because you're right. You guys don't have a wide receiver too, especially after Debo left. You didn't really fill the gaps, so to speak, with anybody here. I mean, you have De'Ami Brown, who's like a fourth-year player or something like that, and just a smaller guy who's probably not going to be fourth or fifth year guy. Never really was like a huge factor in a lot of the offenses he played on. Had a little flashes here and there, but like not someone you can rely on, so to speak, as your number two guy. Luke McCaffrey, also someone who we thought maybe because, it's a storied family and this is an opportunity for him to get some looks here. I mean, he had 11 receptions for 203 yards, 3 touchdowns last year. So that's like crazy efficient, right? 18.5 yards per catch. So he's like a down the field threat, but he's not a true wide receiver 2. He's more of a third, maybe even fringe, like second string guy. And, he's now thrust into a higher sort of workload as well. I don't know. Like, and none of these guys back here, Treylon Burks, De'Ami Brown, Jalen Lane, again, all these second string guys, none of them really jump up out to me as guys who will be able to take that next step up and maybe leapfrog some of these guys that are ahead of them. They did pick up this guy, Antonio Williams, who's their rookie. I will look at his tape in a second, but just to read what Walt said. Ayuk is so convinced that Washington is going to pick him up that he bought a house in Virginia for $10 million, and he still hasn't even been released by the 49ers. Dude, what is happening, bro? There's no way. What would have to happen for the Commanders to actually pick up Ayuk? Would he have to apologize to them? Because he's already kind of like badmouthed Jaden Daniels and kind of like, teased the GM or the front office a little bit, or even the coaching staff, like the whole organization. He's kind of like said some weird tongue-in-cheek shit, and the way he's like behaving towards the 49ers, like, yeah, I think he might literally be cooked. Like, he speed ran through all the stages of CTE, bro. Yeah, he does need a doctor. He needs some physical and mental help for sure. Like physical as in like, hey bro, let's get your health or your diet up together or something like that. I don't know, maybe what foods he's putting into his body or what substances he's putting into his body. I don't think he's like doing drugs or anything like that, but he's definitely acting very strangely and not like someone who has control of their emotions, right? Which is crucial, especially when you're making millions of dollars. You are a representative of, a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar organization. You are a role model to young kids all over the world, right? Because NFL players, especially at a certain level, are recognized by millions of people all around the globe. And so, and again, kids look up to you, right? And so do you want this guy on your team? Like, if I'm the Commanders, if I'm any NFL franchise and I'm seeing what Ayuk is doing right now, I'm like, you're not coming over here with that shit. Right? Like, am I crazy to say that? Like, Rasha, do you think Ayuk should be given another chance, or do you think he just fucking is cooked?
With those antics, there's no way I would take a chance on Ayuk. I mean, we're not talking about, a guy that has the talent of a St. Brown or, even a Zay Flowers.
Right.
I mean, this is a wide receiver 2 at best. I mean, and they could do much worse. Or much better, I should say.
Right.
I mean, even Antonio Williams may be serviceable. I think they just stick with the guys that they have. There's just no reason to bring, toxicity to their locker room. I mean, it's the intangibles, that teams have to consider, more so than, physical talent, on-field ability. Yeah, I would not take Ayuk. There's no way I would get him.
Fair. Yeah, and okay, Dan Quinn is high on Van Jefferson. Interesting. Yeah, Van Jefferson, I think he's buried on the depth chart right now, but he does have decent upside if they do get him going in this offense. But I mean, he's got to show me something coming up. I'm not going to even draft any of these guys, right? But yeah, no, you're right, Rasha. Like, I wouldn't. It's too risky. I would not take a chance on him. And but Walt is saying he was better than Flowers. So out of all the wide receiver ones in the league, I guess you could make the argument that Ayuk was better than Flowers at his best, right? Because there were some games, or there was 1 year before maybe he got his contract that was his best year of his career. And ever since then, literally like right when he got his contract, it was just downhill from there, right? So 2 years, I guess he finished as a top 15 wide receiver. I think maybe this was the year before he got his contract, and then this was the year he got his contract, and then he got his contract, and then only had 47 targets, only played 7 games that year after he got it, and then literally didn't play at all last year. Just didn't fucking play, right? So yeah, year 2023 was his best year. His best year, where he got 1,300 targets, or 1,300 yards, damn, and 7 touchdowns. So yeah. But there's really not a lot else to talk about with the Commanders, man, because like we talked about Terry McLaurin a little bit earlier. We did talk about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt as well. I'll just, refresh that quickly, because I will say where Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is going, if he ends up being a viable RB2 even level type guy, he's worth going where he's going down here. So I'd be willing to take a shot on him over like a Jordan Mason, over a Jonathan Brooks, over a Aaron Jones, a Blake Corum. Like, I for sure would pick up JCM over Blake Corum. Even a Rachaad White, like, who's on the same team, who's going above him. I think I would flip that. I don't know why people think maybe Rachaad White is going to be the guy to own there. I actually think it could be a sneaky Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt backfield when all is said and done. So, but that might be just my residual 2025 JCM hype, my Bill Krosky-Merritt hype from last year, still flowing through my veins, just old habits, right? So, but this is a much more reasonable place to pick up a guy like him and take a shot on him than where he went last year. I think he was going in like the 6th round or some shit last year. Damn, Debo still isn't on the team, by the way. That's crazy. That actually, Walt, to your point, that proves a lot in how you view Debo, because I've been willing to give him a pass, and that's actually why I trusted maybe him last year, and he kind of showed that it was worthy to trust him, at least early on. And then, obviously when Jaden Daniels went down, Debo kind of fell off a cliff production-wise. But just to be fair to Debo, last year, he had some pretty good games in the beginning of the season, right? 4 out of 6 games to start the year, 17-plus point games. A touchdown in 3 of those games, right? So, and actually in touchdown in 4 of those games, 3 of them through the air, 1 of them was on the ground. So he was a viable player early on in the year, and then got hurt, maybe missed a game. Jaden Daniels also got hurt, and then he only had 2 decent games after that and was never quite viable for the rest of the season, right? So, that's interesting that he's not on a team. He's 30 years old. I want to say he still has talent, but like, teams are clearly seeing something, and that's why they're not picking him up. So, oh shit, Smitters, what are you doing? All right. Okay. I think it's time to wrap it up. My cat's getting antsy. I got to go get dinner. I haven't eaten anything. But before we wrap it up with the Commanders, I want to give you the floor, Rasha, to give me any hot takes or interesting outlooks that you think we might be missing for the Commanders. Yeah, see you, Walt.
Well, honestly, I think we could touch on Chig Okonkwo a little bit more. Well, I feel like he can definitely finish in the tight end 1 range. I just think that, the Tennessee Titans didn't utilize him as much as, they could have. You're talking about a guy with rare speed, rare ability, vertical threat type of tight end. And, with his draft cost, I think he's going like tight end 19, 20.
Yep.
I mean, there's no way he finishes below that. He's definitely a guy that I would target at the last spot of my bench. And I agree with you with your takes on Krosky Merritt. I mean, if I was going to take a shot on any of those guys on the backfield, it would be him. I mean, you got to look at who's going to take the goal line work. It's not going to be Rachaad White. He's a receiving back. Katron Allen, he's interesting. Coming out of, I want to say, Washington. He's a bruiser type running back, so he could get some of that goal line work. But even in the receiving game, I believe Krosky Merritt did show enough to where he could get some of that work. Rachaad White is not going to come in and just get all of the receiving work.
Right.
So, Krosky Merritt is a guy that I would take a shot on. It just all comes down to the health of Jaden Daniels. That's what's key.
I agree. And I think you're getting him literally at his floor, right? Like, I think you're drafting him about as low as he could go. And he has had these pop off in terms of his end of year performance, right? Like, if he does a lot of this shit where he's getting 2.5, 5.1, 3 points a game, 4.3 points a game, like that, it's going to be disappointing even where you're drafting him at, right? But he's going to have moments, and probably more than he did last year, where he gets 10 to 14 carries and he finishes with 60 plus yards and a touchdown. I think that is very well within his realm of possibility. And in fact, I think that happens more often than not. And if you're picking him up down here, like, that's a solid flex worthy guy that you're literally getting down here around a bunch of bench warmers. So I think he could surprise people. I think the hype for sure carried his draft stock last year, and clearly he underperformed. And so people, I think, are over correcting now with his draft stock. And so he's going lower than I think he should. And that happens for sure in fantasy. I think it's hard to avoid sort of the overcorrection, the knee jerk, like, oh, well, he burned us last year, so I'm going to value him like much lower than maybe he should be if like we were looking at it from it as a completely objective standpoint, especially with like maybe the passes that we're going to give him for, as you mentioned, the Jaden Daniels injuries, or even the injuries to Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel, and moments where Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt was literally like the only quote unquote starter on the team at times, right? In some of these games, and some of these games where it's like tough matchups at Kansas City, home against Seattle, like Detroit Lions with a tough run D. So like, we got to give them some grace here. We got to give him a little bit of a break with how we're criticizing him a little harshly, but I understand. And if you want to pass on him, bro, I'll be happy to take him up. Not you, obviously, Rasha. I know you said you would pick him up, but like folks out there, if we're drafting and you're like, I don't believe in JCM, and we're talking about round 13, and I'm like, dude, fuck yeah, I'll pick him up. Like, I'll put him on my bench. He could be a flex. He could be a running back too, when all is said and done. So that's my take on him. Maybe it's a little too optimistic, but I think he's just got talent. Like, the flashes that we saw from him were spectacular, and I think that was where we saw the hype generate from in terms of the eye test. He passed the eye test when the situation was optimized for him to succeed, right? So we'll see how likely that is this year. But yeah, no, great takes. And then just to wrap up your Chig take, I know we kind of mentioned this maybe when we were looking at him earlier. I forget if it was today or last week, but dude, you're right. Tennessee, he was getting decent targets, and his yardage was what was impressing you. And it was his athleticism, his speed, his hands, right? His reliability, his clutchness, right? In moments where they needed a fourth down conversion or a third and long conversion, and they look at Chig, he catches it. I can't tell you how many times, maybe like a handful of times that I even watched him play were in situations like that, right? The highlights that we saw from him, from his tape, were in moments like that. He just didn't get in the end zone. He only had two touchdowns, and they came towards the end of last year, literally in week 16 and week 17. So if we're talking about the red zone targets that left with Deebo Samuel, and now Chig is coming in, and Zach Ertz, right? And now Chig is coming in to this tight end role where we've seen Jayden Daniels connect with his tight end in the red zone. I mean, that was when Zach Ertz was like winning people's leagues 2 years ago with Jayden Daniels, with that Jayden Daniels Zach Ertz stack. In fact, I won our league in Los 2 years ago with the Jayden Daniels Zach Ertz stack. I'm almost positive of that, right? So if Chig is coming into this role as the tight end red zone sort of target, well, I believe in the talent. I believe in the athleticism that for a guy you're getting all the way down here in the back of drafts, literally in round 15, round 16, if you have a round 16 in your league, go pick up Chig, man. I could see him actually rising a little bit, maybe overtaking Brenton Strange and, like a Mark Andrews potentially, maybe not that high, but like going around here, like just right above Juwan Johnson. Like, why are we talking about Juwan Johnson over Chig Okonkwo? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of kooky to me. So even though they're like about a half a round away from each other, I would still put Chig over Juwan Johnson, right? But that's nitpicking. But anyways, so, hey, Rasha, thank you so much, bro. That was a lot of fun, man. We got some awesome chat in with the Cowboys and the NFC East. So we're gonna call it here. But Rasha, man, any last words before we call it?
Man, of course, man. I had a lot of fun. It's an honor for you to have me on. I just really, appreciate the opportunity to engage with you and your audience. And, I just look forward to, all the streams going forward and, keeping up with the developing news, man. It was a lot of fun today.
Hell yeah. Well, we do this twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific. So if you're around and you're out there watching, and obviously thank you all so much for tuning in and all that. But Rasha's a mainstay now, bro. We got Rasha on the horn. He's our Dallas Cowboy guy. He's my cousin, and he's gonna have a lot of insight. And I'm excited for this year too, bro. And I know we're in a couple leagues together. So we obviously like to pull our own sort of draft knowledge and whatnot, and then we get to see what actually happens in those drafts. And man, we could talk the talk all we want in preseason and whatnot, but once you're on the clock, bro, all of that goes out the window, I feel like, because it's like anything can happen at that point. You know what I mean? It's hilarious, but it's gonna be so much fun. Yeah. But all right, y'all. Well, we're going to get out of here. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Rasha, for jumping on and chatting with us. Walt, Matty Boots. We got Young Skin in the chat now. Check the status. Nico Dobbs, all the homies, Zuthas. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. And we'll see you guys Tuesday at 3:30 where we talk about the AFC North. My boys, the Bengals. All right. Take it easy, y'all. Peace.